Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 402 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Actually, it's the last day before this upcoming Sunday, the Sunday night fundraiser, and it is also April Fool's. Now, one thing I do want to make clear before we even run the stream tonight is that we have been seeing a lot of people that have been in the Ukrainian war community putting out April Fool's jokes that sometimes are a little too detailed, where most people are not taking them as April Fool's jokes. So in light of that, and also in light of it being a war where, you know, around something like 750 Russians have died today, and around 200 Ukrainian soldiers have died today, we're not going to be making any April Fool's jokes, considering that while we, of course, try and keep a light tone, war is a very serious thing, and we do not want to misinform anyone about what's going on there. So I just want you all to know that before we go into tonight's news. But, crazily enough, the thumbnail was not an April Fool's. As crazy as it sounds, today on April 1st of 2023, the Russians have now become the head of the United Nations Security Council, and we're going to be going to that news immediately here in New York City.
Man, that should be an April Fool's joke.
That should be an April Fool's joke, but sadly, this is real, and this has to be the worst April Fool's joke ever. Not just because it is a bad joke, but because it actually happened. According to the information that we have, Russia is, and let me make sure we read this article correctly, each of the council's 15 members takes up the presidency for a month on a rotating pattern. So it's now Russia's turn to hold the, I guess you could say, the talking stick, in a way, in the UN Security Council, and they will now be holding the, I guess you could say, leader of the UN Security Council stick for about the next month. So we'll be seeing them here until May 1st, and then it'll pass on to the next country in the Security Council. This is outrageous, really, when you think about it, considering that the Russians have launched an illegal invasion of another country. On top of that, they are openly the ones that are threatening world security right now, threatening to nuke almost everyone that gets in their way. So it seems really weird to put them as the leader of a UN Security Council, and I would feel that the 14 members would have at least put in strong protest to this, and it looks like they tried to, but it wasn't really that strong at all, and so they will be the Security Council leader for the next month. This is a little silly in my opinion, and there's really not more to add to it than that. It just is what it is, and it's kind of ridiculous when you look at it on a surface level. We're now going to be moving on out of this bit of news from inside of New York City at the UN at the UN headquarters inside of New York, and we're now going to be moving on over into Poland, because while the UN Security Council is doing all of its fun stuff, which doesn't really make much sense, there is an entire war going on the other side of the world inside of Ukraine, and the Ukrainians have actually purchased a fairly large order from the Polish of armored vehicles. These are ones that I'm not really familiarized with, but they look pretty interesting. They have ordered a whopping 100 Rosomach-wheeled APCs. This is a Rosomach-wheeled APC.
They're stocking up on those. They don't look too bad either.
They don't look that bad, and if I'm seeing this correctly, and we're going to pull up a little bit more information on this thing here, that is a 25mm Bushmaster main gun that you would find on a Bradley. So let me pull that thing up, the Rosomach APC. And here it is. It is called a KTO Rosomach, and this thing does have a 30mm. It's not the 25mm that you would find on a Bradley. It's actually a 30mm Bushmaster gun, and you can see it right there. It kind of has a very striking resemblance to almost every other wheeled APC in the West. It looks a lot like a Striker, in all honesty, but it has a 30mm turret mounted on top of it. Pretty interesting, to say the least, and let's see what kind of horsepower and speed it has. This thing can go 60 miles per hour on land, very fast for an armored personnel carrier, and getting on up there in speed for the wheeled armored personnel carriers as well. It has a whopping 543 or 480 horsepower under the hood, and it also is able to travel an entire 500 miles on a single tank of gas. So it's not that bad of an APC, all things considered, in the maneuverability aspect, and also in terms of the firepower, it has one 30mm Bushmaster 2, it has a one a WKMB, which appears to be the Polish version of a Dishka. And it is actually, well, actually, it was designed to replace the Dishka, so it's more of like an upgraded variant of the Dishka in a way. Well, actually, I'm so sorry, everyone. It's actually an NSV. Whoops. Moving on from that. Moving on from that, we can also see that they have a secondary armament of a 76, well, a 308 or a 762 UKM 2000, which also appears to be kind of a, let's see, designed and manufactured. It almost looks Soviet, but it's Polish, but it's made to a NATO cartridge. So, fairly interesting little machine gun, fairly interesting armament. Honestly, I am not really that familiar with the 30mm Bushmaster. The Bradley uses a 25mm, and we're usually talking about that one and its firepower on the stream, considering that the Bradleys are in training in Poland right now. I don't really know a lot about the 30mm, its firepower, its penetrative abilities of armor, but if it is able to be equipped with depleted uranium rounds like the 25mm Bushmaster and Bradley can, which I'm supposing this one can as well, it probably will be able to punch through things like T-55s and T-62s with relative ease, although that would be at closer ranges.
And I saw Bobo Uzala say, is this thing amphibious?
I would assume, considering that we can actually see a little boat propeller back there at the back of the APC, it must be amphibious. Let me go.
That's kind of a dead giveaway.
Yeah, that's kind of a dead giveaway. This one doesn't have the boat propellers, though. And it appears to be the non-turreted version, but we can actually see them fording across the river right here.
Oh, wow. It always surprises me to see like vehicles this large and heavy in the water, to see that they actually float. It's kind of wild to see.
It really is. Like, they don't even look like when they're actually floating, they still don't look like they should be floating. It looks like they're in the process of sinking.
Yeah, they could be.
But anyways, a very large order that the Ukrainians have filled out. We do not know how long it's going to take for the Polish to fulfill this order, but it is incredibly interesting to hear that they will be purchasing a multitude of these, and it looks like this is a part of the Ukraine's modernization efforts to try and modernize their own forces through their own checkbook, which is fairly interesting to see. We're now going to be moving on from Poland and across Ukraine and into the Rostov-on-Don region. Rostov-on-Don has been hearing myriads of explosions, a never-ending litany of explosions at this point, and I have never really seen a day where any of these have been explained. We just hear the explosions, or we see the explosions in Rostov-on-Don, and we still have no explanations for any of them at this moment as to what they are. We heard another explosion over the Rostov-on-Don area tonight on security camera, and we still have no explanation as to all of the previous explosions that have happened, nor do we have an explanation for this one as well. But here's the video, and you can audibly hear the explosion right there. You can also see someone standing out here outside of a building, and that's the end of the clip. But it's incredibly interesting to hear these explosions, and of course we have no idea what these are. We do know that at one time Rostov-on-Don actually was attacked by drones, missiles, and also we heard that there was maybe, and this was a very big stretch, and that's why I'm saying it as maybe, an aircraft attack or a helicopter attack on Rostov-on-Don a very long time ago, but we were never able to confirm that attack, so we kind of scrubbed it and put it as something that didn't happen. But we do know that drones and missiles like the Tu-141 drone have been able to make it to Rostov-on-Don and hit targets here, most specifically the airfields that are around the city. We do not know what the explosions are being caused by right now. It could be really anything. It could be a drone, it could be a missile, it could be sabotage, it could be that there was an accident at one of the Russian airfields. It could have been that someone lit up a cigarette in the wrong place, which is something that the Russians do a lot. We just don't really know at this point. We are in the dark right now about what's going on in Rostov-on-Don. We just hear multitudes of explosions and no explanations. We're now going to be moving on out of Rostov-on-Don and into Ukraine itself, and on into the western area. We're largely using the western area of Ukraine, just the entire area now, to post our markers of vehicles on training fields, because while they are location unknowns, because we do not know where these training fields are, I do want to differentiate them, considering that they are in the far west of Ukraine, somewhere, I would say, in between Lviv and Vinnytsia and all the way up towards Rivne. It's most likely somewhere in this area, and, you know, if that narrows it down for the Russians, it's not, because there's like nothing in between these cities and it's a massive area. Anyways, moving on into the picture, we saw another picture of one of those Challenger 2s that have been provided to Ukraine right here. As we can see, it is largely a run-of-the-mill Challenger 2. In fact, what's very interesting about these Challenger 2s that were provided to the Ukrainians is that we do not see the kind of armor modifications that would be equipped on a British tank in service. For example, I'll show y'all a Challenger 2 in Iraq in 2003. And so here we go. And as you can see here, these are all of the pictures of all of the Challenger 2s that were active in Iraq, or at least some of them. And one thing that y'all may notice about these tanks that we do not see on the ones in Ukraine is that they have an extra armor modification package that was installed onto them before they went into the war. This is what is called a Challenger 2 Theater Entry Standard. Well, more like a theater entry standard loadout. This is supposed to protect the crew a little bit more than the normal armor can by adding on some explosive reactive armor to the lower glacis and also adding on some additional explosive reactive armor to the side skirts to make sure that those areas are a little better protected. As far as we can see, in all the pictures we've seen of the Challenger 2s that have been provided to Ukraine, we have not seen these armor modifications on a single one of them. They all appear to be Challenger 2s that came straight off the training fields with no additional armor modifications. We do not know if there was some kind of an agreement. We have seen Leopard 2 A4s being modified with Contact 1 explosive reactive armor that is from the Soviet era. We do not know if the Ukrainians are going to give this, the Challenger 2 the exact same treatment and try and soup up the armor wherever it is a little weak compared to the rest of the tank, kind of like the Theater Entry Standard package was supposed to do for the British. But for now, it appears that these tanks may be entering combat as light as physically possible, which means that there are no additional armor modification packages. They are entering with their standard armor alone. Still incredibly interesting, though, and it's great to know that such competent tanks as the Challenger 2 are being sent to Ukraine. From what we saw from the Challenger 2s that were fighting in Iraq, none of them were lost to enemy fire. Two of them were actually destroyed, one by friendly fire, and another one was sabotaged, I believe, because it was immobilized and they decided to blow it up instead of possibly letting it fall into enemy hands. Both of those tanks had to be destroyed by the British for them to even blow up. We actually know of a story of a Challenger 2 that took, I believe it was like 90 RPG hits. I would have to pull up the story again, but 90 direct RPG hits to it, and the worst injury that one of the crew members endured was the driver, and his toe got cut by spalling inside of the tank's armor. So pretty wild to hear that this tank has such a high level of crew survivability and apparently can keep on trucking. Of course, however, that was in 2003, and while the Russians do not have any modern weapons and these Challenger 2s will largely be going up against everything that they were fighting in Iraq, we don't really know if you know, that was just a scenario where the British were going up against the Iraqis, and so there was really no way for them to get seriously disabled, or if we'll be seeing something different. But right now, the Challenger 2's track record is spotless. We're now going to be moving on from the Challenger 2 and on out of the western area of Ukraine and on into our location unknowns already. And starting off with our first bit of location unknowns, we saw a Ukrainian unit training in the anti-air defense role. And what's really cool is that there's a spotlight near each truck, and then you can see that they're just technicals, of course. It's nothing special, and they just have dishkas mounted onto the back of these Toyotas, and they're firing up into the air at a target drone and trying to see how to operate the spotlight and the machine guns at the exact same time. And here's the video. You can see them firing off at the target in the distance. The spotlights appear to be illuminating a central spot, and it appears...
Is that a laser, too?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, they actually have lasers out there.
Man, those are some high-powered lasers.
And we can see that this is training in mass right here. They're getting everyone training at the same time. They said all the AA guys go to the training field today. Y'all are all training on air defense. Of course, these little technicals are not going to be standing up against Russian cruise missiles or ballistic missiles. Those are far too fast and far too difficult to target for these guys to hit. And they would have to be very lucky to even be in a place where they could see one and also have the machine gun reach out and hit it somehow. These are more so... I guess you could say more so in the direction of being used against Shahed 136 drones and other kinds of drones like Orlons if their altitude is low enough. We can also see that they're training at night with the spotlights, which once again reiterates the idea that while they may be going up against Orlons, this is primarily anti-Shahed training, as Shaheds usually fly during the cover of night, and so the spotlights would be used to illuminate the Shahed, and then the technical would try and shoot it down. They most likely wouldn't be working in a massive group like this, because imagine having 20 technicals in every single AA battery. I mean, like, that would be crazy. So there's probably only going to be one technical per battery with one spotlight, and they'll be placed around strategic areas of cities to try and shoot down the incoming Shaheds if possible. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, but a very interesting look at how the Ukrainians are training their anti-Shahed air defense units. And we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, where we saw a massive firefight. Funnily enough, we usually get the location of massive firefights because they're so large that they usually are recorded to be in a specific spot. Today we didn't get that. This one was actually completely unknown where it happened. We know that it happened within the past 24 hours, but here is the clip, and we got to see some Ukrainian soldiers in action in the middle of this firefight. Also, this says 28:01:23. So so the interesting thing is that we got the video today. This video has never surfaced until now, so I don't know where they got the video date from. I don't know if this is actually from the publisher, but it aired today. We saw it today, and so we're putting it up today. And so with that, here's the clip. We can see the Ukrainian soldier has his grenade launcher. He's reloading it right now. We can see he's having a pretty fun time with the whole thing, of course, doing a little joke. He is currently reloading the cylinder. We now see him still smiling at the camera as he's reloading his grenade launcher. Firefight going on all around him. We can hear the bullets bouncing off the ground nearby. We can also hear the Ukrainians returning fire, and we can now see him firing off his grenade launcher into the distance to try and land some grenades on the Russian squad that's firing at them. We can hear them exploding in the distance. The firefight is still going on with the same intensity they had before. He's now spinning the cylinder out, dropping the grenades out the back, and he's now going to start reloading it again with the bullets bouncing off the ground just yards away. We now see him reloading the grenade launcher again, getting back into his original spot in the trench, aiming and firing. We hear the grenades exploding in the distance. The firefight's still carrying on with the same intensity, and so while he's firing off about 12 grenades at this point, it appears that none of them have hit the Russians and suppressed them. But it now sounds like the firefight was dying down there for a little bit. You now see him whipping out the AK.
This guy's taking it all in stride.
And he's now firing at the Russians directly with his rifle. We can't really tell how close the Russians are at this point. They sound close. They sound like they're around maybe 200, 300 yards away. We now see him reloading. Aiming. And he's continuing to fire at the Russians. The video ends right there. And that is a pretty good look at a firefight that apparently occurred, according to the caption, within January. We don't really know if it did or didn't because, you know, the trees still kind of look like this right now. So I don't know if the caption's date is correct. We will assume it is, though. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that this did happen in January. And I actually slipped up by saying it must have happened today. But still, it is a very interesting sight to see how some Ukrainian soldiers like this guy, I'm guessing he may be the squad's grenadier, is firing off his grenade launcher in 1 minute and then just pulling out an AK and then firing directly at the Russians for a little bit. He's like, the grenade launcher, no use. He just picks up the AK and just starts shooting directly at him. But
yeah,
still,
man, you got to give him credit for like staying cool under that kind of pressure because most people would probably crack under that.
Oh man, dude, the way he was looking at the camera though at the start, like if some of y'all have watched some SNL clips from way back in the day, y'all may know what I'm talking about right here. He's playing around right here and he looks at the camera and it looks like he's about to go, "You like it, the juice?"
He's looking like he's smiling, but internally he's thinking this is a little bit stressful.
He's like, "Man, this is wild." And look at him, he's just like the guy took it in great stride. You got to give him a lot of credit for the morale he's got right here, especially on top of that, you can hear the rounds bouncing off the ground near him. You like all those little snaps. We'll wait for him. That one right there. Those are all bullets that are either flying over his head or smacking into the ground somewhere near him. And so in the middle of all of this gunfire, and in the massive exchange that's going on in between these two sides, this guy's just smiling and laughing away and just popping off grenades, kind of like he's shooting a little like a bubble gun or something like that. He's like, "Oh, it's a great day out here today." Pulling the trigger, firing off grenades. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And I gotta say, that guy had some pretty considerable morale, especially considering the situation. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news, where we can actually see the Russian losses for today. And the losses have taken a little bit of an increase, but they're still not up to the numbers that we've been seeing over the last month. We can actually see that Keith does things, put a man.
Oh my god, that man fell over the side of that bobcat?
He dived off the back of that bobcat straight into the floor. Wait a minute, we gotta watch that on full screen.
That's the reason why they put those warning labels on the side of everything.
Oh
Don't roll this down the side of a hill.
Dude, that guy sent it. It was like he was diving into a pool. Good God, man. Oh my God. You know that had to hurt. Goodness.
That guy just added a whole new module to the safety briefing.
Yes. Now someone in the, what is it, OSHA is sitting there going, "Oh my God, it's my day. I can have a rule named after me," or something like that. Oh, thank God. Let's see here. What else do we have? Oh, we got the little toy excavator thing. Oh, man. I only saw one of those when I was a kid. I remember only seeing one of them when I was a kid, and they were never at our school.
Yeah, I think we actually had one, I think.
Yeah, but I think that was not like in the town we grew up in ever. Like I do not ever remember that thing.
I think it might have been in Mississippi, maybe.
I think it was. Not giving away the specific location, but I think it was. Let's see, in the next one, we can see some bobcats working in a swimming pool. I gotta say, bobcats are pretty cool, not gonna lie. Another burning bobcat. We can see a bobcat actually going into a cave at the zoo. It's in an exhibit.
Oh my God.
I like that.
Also, by the way, quick note, serious side note. In the poll, autocorrect got me. It's supposed to say Zelenskyy says Russia's plan to send nukes and not plant. He's not sending plants. Just to make that clear.
He's sending that high quality Ukrainian Kush.
What is
Oh man, nothing. Anyways, that was like all the bobcats that we. Oh wait a minute, we had another one, a bobcat plushie. We might have to get that.
That's pretty cool.
Let's see, another burned bobcat.
You have to be an extreme bobcat fan to get a plushie.
Oh my God, man! Then they put Matthew Broderick on this thing.
Oh man, I thought that was me for a minute.
I thought that was you, man. I swore it was you. And let's see, another bobcat doing a wheelie. And we've got Putin being roasted. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't eat Putin. Seems kind of weird. You know, like that's kind of cannibalism in a way. I don't really think I'd be into it. Then we can see this kid flinging dirt over his face right here. He's already getting into construction. That's just a little bit more dirt. He'll be there. Let's see, a bobcat on fire, and also, oh my God, look, a bobcat with a Z on it that's getting artillery shots. Someone actually drew that.
That's pretty cool.
And it looks like they didn't even add us. Oh, man.
They just picked up on the joke and ran with it.
Yeah, they're like, the joke is spreading. It's gone viral. It's airborne. But still, so many bobcats and so many people who enjoy this channel. And thank you all to every single one of y'all. Like Melissa Smith, I put a little bobcat down here in the comment section. There are loads of them now. I don't even think we can look at them all anymore, but there are a million of them. Eventually, Kyiv Independent will say something like, "Where the hell are these coming from?" and eventually find out. But until then, their little comment sections are going to be spammed with bobcats, just endless bobcats. Anyways, getting on into the casualty report, and not just the bobcats. 2 bobcat skid steers were destroyed today, which is a nice number to see. We also saw that one anti-aircraft warfare system was destroyed. We don't know which one that was specifically. It could be anything. It could be a Tor, it could be an OSA, it could be a Cube, it could be a Buke. Buke and Cube are literally just the same letters, but just flipped backwards, depending on which one you're coming from, which is kind of funny because they're actually two totally separate systems. Anyways, we're assuming that it would be anywhere in between $10 to $15 million of anti-aircraft warfare equipment lost today, depending on what kind of AA system it was. If it was a Tor, then they've hit the money. We also saw that one MLRS was destroyed. We do not know what kind that was either. It could have been an Uragon, it could have been a Grad, it could have been the Smerch. We're not exactly certain, but one of them was lost. 8 artillery systems were destroyed today as well. And we have a fairly good idea that all of the artillery systems that are destroyed are usually D-20s and D-30s. An entire 2 artillery batteries have been lost today, a fairly decent number keeping up with the average. However, the tank losses, once again, were quite low. Only 1 tank was lost over a 24-hour period, which is, to be honest with y'all, one of the lowest figures we've seen in quite a while, and it appears that the tank losses are once again beginning to decrease as the Russian offensive begins to kind of sputter out a little bit. We also saw that 7 supply trucks were destroyed. That's actually fairly average over the past month, and it appears that the Russian logisticians are, of course, having some issues trying to keep vehicles in the military, because 5,528 of them have been destroyed. We've seen the Russians use a lot of civilian vehicles to try and deliver the supplies. We've even seen them go on to desperate measures of pulling the Scooby-Doo vans out, and also continuing to produce even more supply trucks. That's one thing that the Russians actually are able to produce, but the factory north of Moscow, and let me remember the city that was in, it was north of Moscow, in Yaroslavl, that produces most of the motors and engines that go inside of military supply trucks like the Euro 4320, did burn to the ground about a week ago. So we do not know how heavily affected the constant supply and what kind of attrition rate supply trucks are going through right now. So if we were to take a guess that new Euro 4320s may not be able to be produced due to a lack of engines, this may actually be a loss that is starting to hurt the Russian army, but we're not exactly certain at this moment what kind of logistical challenges the Russians are facing due to the Yaroslavl Motor Industries factory being burned to the ground. We also saw that 4 armored personnel carriers were destroyed today as well. Once again, a fairly low number compared to the past month's average on a daily basis, and once again, most likely resulting from the petering out of most offensives. They did launch an armored offensive today towards Volodar, and it did end in disaster with multiple APCs and tanks lost, but that will most likely be included in tomorrow's casualty report, not today's, just in case y'all are wondering. And then finally, the final number, 630 Russian troops have been approximated to be killed over the past 24 hours. Of course, that's a give or take number. That's most likely falling somewhere within a ballpark average. It could be higher, could be lower. We're not exactly certain, but 630 Russian troops being lost, while not as high as the past month, because on the past month's average, it's been nearly like 900 to 1,000 a day has been the average. 630 is still quite high. That's knocking out almost 3/4 of an entire battalion tactical group's worth of strength across the entirety of the front lines, which of course is a loss that isn't really great, considering that the US and Britain had an average daily loss rate in the Second World War of around 450 to 500 guys per day. 630 is actually quite high, considering that this isn't a world war. This is just a war with Ukraine. And supposedly, the second mightiest army in the world was supposed to be able to fold them in 3 days, and now they're losing 630 guys just today, which is about 130 higher than the highest average day for the US in the Second World War. Very sad, really. Very, very sad. And hell, even when you compare that to the casualty numbers for the Americans in the Second World War, we only lost 500,000 soldiers dead over the course of the Second World War. That means if we do the math, and I must pull out a calculator to do this because that's very scary to mention that the M word on this channel and then try and do it off the top of my head. 173,990 divided by about 500, I think it was like 25,000. That means that they've lost about a third of the amount of troops that we lost over the entirety of the Second World War, which lasted for 4 years for the United States over 2 separate fronts, both in Europe and also in the Pacific, and somehow they've already lost 33% of our total losses over that 4-year war, the largest one in the world's history, in the matter of a year and a month fighting Ukraine. Also, if you are wondering what this may compare to another war, compared to Vietnam, they've actually lost something like, in the number dead, around 3 times, 3 and about a half times the number of soldiers that we lost in Vietnam over the course of 10 years. And they've lost 3 times that number, 3.5 times that number in the course of only a year and a month, to give you a little bit of a scale of how badly these casualties are being taken on. And in the American eyes, the war in Vietnam was just a meat grinder. People got sent over there, got killed in the jungle, and it was terrible. And they weren't doing, in the public's eye, of course, how people look at it. The Americans were over there fighting for nothing and losing loads of guys. You know, and of course, we're not going to get into whether that's true or not, but that's how a lot of people look at that in the modern day. And the Russians are fighting in Ukraine, losing 3.5 times that number in a year. Not 10 years, but in 1 year. And they're sitting there and going, oh, bleh, the casualties are not that bad. It could be worse, you know. Hell, NATO could fight us. Look at the casualties they'd probably be taking. And which is an absolute joke. But anyways, that's our casualty report for today on April 1st. And I guess you could say that these guys got pranked massively. That's it, you know?
It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank.
Dude, like a Russian was walking down the street and a toe popper blew his foot off and he went, ah, bleh! And the Ukrainian came out the bush right beside him and went, April Fools, man. And then he went back into the bush and the Russian was like, oh, bleh, I forgot, it's April Fool's. He just reattaches his foot and just keeps on going on his way. What a fun day April Fool's is.
Jeez.
But anyway.
Also, I do have a question for you from the chat. Somebody asked, does the artillery losses include mortars?
I think it may. And then that opens up a whole myriad of other things. One thing that we've kind of decided over the course of the war on this channel is that these artillery system numbers, we don't really know if they include SPGs or not, so these could be 2S1s, 2S3s, they could be Mista S's. We don't really know if they are including all of that in the artillery systems category, but I would assume they may be. But I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch, because if you look at the, I guess you could say the little illustration that they're going with on the left side, it's showing a towed artillery piece. And of course, the Bobcat skid steer does not reflect that every single one of the special equipment vehicles being lost is a Bobcat skid steer. But, you know, it kind of, just based off the infographic they put there, I'm kind of taking a ballpark estimate that this is mostly towed artillery pieces, and very few or any SPGs or mortars are included in it. But it may be the case that they are being included. It's just that we're not really sure. So actually, you know what? That's a great enough question. It has such a good point. We're actually going to just say that the artillery systems category, according to Kyiv Independent, probably includes every single thing that can be called artillery, whether it be mortars, SPG, towed artillery pieces. It's most likely falling under the artillery systems category overall. So with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well. That was actually a great one. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we saw a truck MLRS firing. Of course, y'all know Toyota makes a good truck. And what
very good truck. Hilux is wonderful.
And what better truck do they make than the Toyota Hilux Rocket Edition? Oh no, not the copyright. Oh no. And we can now see it firing its rockets. They appear to be the standard.
Oh. They even added stabilizers.
Oh my god, like, dude!
That is insane.
Holy hell! Did you see the spread on these rockets? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This has to be one of the most inaccurate MLRSs I've seen of the war. I mean, there are some MLRSs out there that have like only 3 127mm rocket tubes on them. This thing, though, look at this. When they actually pan out and you watch the thing rapid fire, like, they are going everywhere. This one right here is like 3 miles away from the rest of them when it lands. So I don't really know how effective this MLRS is. And this is the first truck MLRS I've seen where the accuracy of the rockets is visibly seen, and it's way off from rocket to rocket. I mean, like, it is like that for all of them. But still, it is a very...
Hell, at least it's going down range.
Yeah, as long as it's hitting somewhere around the Russians, it's good. Meanwhile, there's some Russian in the rear lines going, I'm safe now, nothing can hurt me, as that one stray MLRS rocket is making its way right for him. But with that, that's the end of that clip. A very interesting thing to see them still using the Toyota Hilux MLRSs, and I don't know how effective this one's going to be. Being completely honest with y'all, I feel like this one may not be that effective because of how inaccurate the rockets were, but it's still an MLRS. The rockets are landing somewhere, and hopefully they're landing on top of the Russians, but I feel like that may be a little bit of a stretch. So with that, y'all know what we're doing. We're moving on to the last bit of Location Unknown news. And this was fairly interesting because someone actually brought up this website last night. And so let me get to it real quick, and then let me show y'all. This is from Oryx, and many of y'all may remember that someone brought up, I believe it was last night or the night before, Oryx as a source for vehicle losses. Oryx is a website that gathers up all of the photographic evidence throughout the entire war of any vehicle that has been lost or destroyed, and they also collect this data on both sides. So this is about the best estimate we can get at any given moment of Russian losses compared to Ukrainian ones at any given moment. And in fact, they are so gracious in their, I guess you could say, statistics that they actually have divided it up into the amount destroyed, the amount captured, abandoned, and then the total losses for both sides. And so we can see here that as the war has progressed, and it appears that this is measuring over April 1st of last year to April 1st of this year, we can actually see that Ukrainian vehicles that were abandoned are actually quite low. The Russians actually had a significant dip somewhere around October and November of last year, where very few of their vehicles were being abandoned. But once the winter offensive began in Bakhmut around November, which would be about right here, we can see that the number of abandoned vehicles has started to skyrocket and have gotten up to around 50% of all Russian vehicles that have been documented on Oryx as of April 1st of this year were abandoned on the front lines. It's actually whopping when you think about it. 1 in every 2 Russian vehicles that is seen on the front lines is abandoned at this point. So that means that instead of 2 T-72B3s being destroyed, a T-72B3 is destroyed and another one is captured since it was abandoned. We also see that there has been a somewhat interesting number of Ukrainian vehicles that were being captured nearer to the beginning of the war around April 1st of last year. That number appears to have significantly reduced, although it has been on a gradual climb ever since the beginning of the winter offensive. We can also see that Russian vehicles, however, in the amount of captures, has started to significantly decrease from its peak around the October to November months. So once again, a fairly interesting little look at the statistics. Destroyed vehicles, however, seem to also be climbing at this point of the year, but in other categories we can also see the abandoned vehicles climbing. So it appears that while the number of captured vehicles are decreasing, the number of abandoned and destroyed Russian vehicles are both increasing at the same time. It appears that the Russians were actually able to somehow corral their vehicles into not being destroyed as heavily as they were back in around September or so. And they were able to get a significant decrease in the amount of destroyed vehicles up until about January of this year, and now we can see the number of destroyed vehicles on any given day once again climbing in percentage. And then down here at the very bottom, at the bottom right, we can see the total losses for both sides. That includes abandoned, captured, and destroyed. And as we can see due to this graph, it appears that in terms of vehicular losses, for every 3 Russian vehicles that are being lost or destroyed, the Ukrainians are losing about 1. So it's a 3-to-1 ratio right now in advantage of the Ukrainians, and that is not that bad in terms of losses. Usually, and we don't know the infantry losses still. We do not know the Ukrainian casualty losses, so that way we can compare them to the Russian ones. But according to the vehicle losses, the Ukrainians are not doing that bad. And of course, one will think, well, how in the hell is that good? Because the Russians have like 15,000 tanks or something like that, at least according to their official numbers. But we once again have to remember, those tanks only exist on paper. The Russians in reality only have around 4,000 tanks, and the ones that they have that increase their numbers on paper have rotted away for decades in Far Eastern storage lots. And so to get them to the front, you would practically have to rebuild them from the ground up inside out, which means that the Russians probably wouldn't be able to do that, and if they did, they wouldn't be most likely technologically to a 1960 standard at best, considering that they're not able to get any more computer components or advanced sites like we have here in the West, and so they will be largely ineffective against Western weaponry that the Ukrainians are being provided. So it is actually not that bad. It's not as bad as some people have been alluding to, because we never had a good guess at what kind of losses the Ukrainians have been taking compared to the Russians, but based off of this, it's about a 3-to-1 ratio, which is not bad whatsoever, and the closest we've ever gotten to actually estimating how good are the Ukrainians doing in losses compared to the Russians, but only in vehicular losses that have been confirmed on Oryx. We're now going to be moving on from that last bit of Location Unknown news, and now we're moving on into the front lines themselves, which have had a pretty decent amount of news today. We've also seen something very interesting in Bakhmut. In fact, a little bit concerning, as the Russians have made one of the largest advances in the city in the amount of ground that we've ever seen throughout the entirety of the offensive. But we'll be getting to that in a second. Before we do that, though, we have to address the polls, because Matthew's been running, as I always say, bussin' polls. They're straight up bussin', and so we got to get into them, as the young folks say.
All right. So that being said, we're getting into those bussin' polls, and we have 3, like usual, to address during the first question segment. And the very first one says, Ukraine has placed an Orthodox Church leader under house arrest for Russian ties. And what are your thoughts? 85%, which is the majority, said there are likely more church spies in Ukraine. 7% said unsure. 4% said, I don't think that's right. And 5% said it's probably just an isolated incident. Now, I have to say that I'm with the 85%. There's probably more. That's a really good place to hide spies, is in a church, because when you start dealing with people in churches, that starts getting people riled up to an extent, and that would play to Russia's advantage to try to protect a spy. Also, our fella here that got placed on house arrest, he was sporting a Patek Philippe, one of those high-end watches that cost over $100,000. Somebody took a picture of it on his wrist when he was being taken out of the court, I think, today. So very interesting seeing that on a church leader. But I got to go with 85%. But at least he's flexing that Rolex. But Enforcer, what say you?
Dude, you say there, it is nothing more than a humble flex in the name of the Lord, Bliet. But I would say that is most likely what is happening, is that there's probably a lot of people that are hiding within the Russian Orthodox Church. And of course, just in case if anyone's wondering, it's always weird, especially talking about it from an American perspective, because in the United States, of course, the First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion, meaning that you can practice whatever your religion you want without really any consequences. What's interesting, though, about the situation with the Russian Orthodox Church is that, unlike most, I guess you could say, churches of a Christian origin, or even, I guess you could say, organizations of other religions, the Russian Orthodox Church, or more so the Russian Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church, is actually run almost directly, well, in fact, it is directly run by the Russian government. That came around back in the day, and I'll actually explain why, because no one's ever really explained why the hell the Russian Orthodox Church, or the Russian Patriarchy, is run by the Russian government, and that goes all the way back to Soviet times. During the beginning of the Soviet Union, Lenin, of course, was a very strongly, I guess you could say, professed atheist. And the official religion, or the official religious stance of the Soviet Union, was state-sponsored atheism. You really could not make it in the Soviet government if you openly professed having any kind of religion. And so Lenin wasn't really able to combat the power of the church during his time as the leader of the Soviet Union. Yes, he did violently repress them, but the Eastern Orthodox Church, or the Russian Patriarchy, still held boundless amounts of control over the masses inside of Russia. That all changed when Stalin came around and started committing regular purges. And of course, most of those purges at the beginning of Stalin's reign were directed at the Russian Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church. And in fact, any patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church, or any faith that fell under control of the Soviet Union. That also would include the Ukrainian Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church as well. He would have them rounded up, he would have them executed, but he decided, and he found out, you can't really just kill them all off, because the religion will still exist. The Russian Patriarchy would live on, even if it wasn't officially recognized or officially existed, it would continue to live on through the people. So Stalin did something that was, of course, a very Stalin move, and he decided that he was actually going to install plants, pretty much, that were Soviets, into the Russian Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church, which pretty much made the church part of the government. In fact, Stalin made himself the head of the Russian Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church to show you how heavily run by the government it was. And largely, it was all just a thing to try and keep the masses in line and make it look like the Soviets were at least tolerant of religion, so that way they wouldn't go into open revolt. Interesting enough,
it's really not a bad idea if you think about it, because it never looks good when a government goes in and starts trying to interfere with churches. Not saying that Russia's right in doing it, but Ukraine's really got to watch out for that.
Yes, and that's true. And from that day forward, ever since Stalin integrated the Russian patriarchy into the Soviet government. Even when the Soviet Union collapsed, the patriarchy continued to exist as an apparatus of the Russian government. And that's why, to this day, it seems to be a massive issue. Wherever a Russian patriarchy church is, the Russian government can largely start to disperse propaganda or misinformation, whatever the Russians want, through that church. And that's why the Ukrainians have been starting to shut them down. It has heavy ties to the Russian government. It is run, in essence, by the Russian government. And so to have that to exist in Ukraine is pretty much allowing the Russians to try and sow seeds of dissent, uprising, and so on inside of Ukraine in the middle of a war. And of course, you all know that wars bring around emergency situations. And considering that the Russians are their enemy right now, anything that's directly connected to the Russian government or the Russian state is to be shut down. And so that is why there are probably folks hiding in the Russian Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church, because it is an institute of the Russian government. Also, another thing, real quick, to explain, is that the same thing wouldn't happen to the Soviet Union's Islamic population down to the south in the Stan series countries, because the Soviets actually realized if they tried to do that to the Islamic people, they would just start committing outright terrorism against the Soviet government. So they were much more light-handed to them, and that would actually pose a lot of political, well, more like diplomatic issues and political issues for the Soviet Union there forward, because whenever things started to get heated down in the Middle East, and the Pakistanis started to fund terrorist groups like the Bengal Tigers, among others, and also the Mujahideen, that started to directly threaten the security of the southern parts of the Soviet Union that's now the Stan series countries, and that's why the Soviets would end up invading Afghanistan in 1979. But that's a story for a whole other time. You could really make a video about that stuff, but I hope that explains why the Ukrainians are taking that action and why there are most likely spies and saboteurs hiding inside of the Russian Patriarchy. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second poll says, Zelenskyy says that Russia's plan to send nukes to Belarus proves that the Putin and Xi talks have failed, and what are your thoughts? 60% said I agree with that, 14% said unsure, 19% said it could be partially correct, and 7% said I disagree. And on this one, I did read the entire article laying out Zelenskyy's rationale for that conclusion, and I'd have to say I partially agree with him, but I don't think we can say that conclusively based on simply the act of sending nukes to Belarus. I think that's something that Russia's doing to try to get leverage over the West. It's probably not going to work because nothing's changed in reality. But I don't think we can conclude that the talks between Xi and Putin have failed completely from that. So I'm with the 19%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I'm kind of a little mixed on that one, because it doesn't really show the relations in between China and Russia have failed, considering that it seems on every other diplomatic route they are actually starting to make ground, which is a little bit concerning. I really think that this is something the Russians have done, and the Chinese, if anything, would be like, oh no, stop, who's going to stop them, help, and then they're not really going to do anything in response. Just because the Chinese say something and the Russians break it doesn't mean that their friendship immediately ends. There's a lot of things that countries do in the Western sphere that the United States disagrees with, but they really can't do anything about. For example, when France back in the 50s said that no American forces would be stationed in France, no one would be stationed in France, and to get the hell out. And that didn't really please the United States much at all, but we still had to live with it, and France is still a part of NATO and every other Western coalition pretty much to this very day. So I guess you could say what I'm trying to say there is that just because two countries are kind of trying to be friends with each other, it doesn't mean that sometimes they go against the grain and goes against the other one's wishes, and then it tears the whole thing apart. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the third and final one says, footage of Wagner in center of Bakhmut has been allegedly confirmed by geolocation, and what are your thoughts? It looks like 43% said it might be true, and that's not good. 15% said unsure, 25% said we won't know until later, and 17% said it's likely false and maybe a spoofed location. Now, from my understanding, the media has supposedly geolocated this image based on the surroundings that they saw in the background. Now, take that how you will. It could be simply a few Wagner soldiers that made their way through the lines to plant a flag to seem like they broke through, and in reality, they haven't. So I'm going to say we won't know until later, and I'm going to wait for an official report to take that as truth or not. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the same thing largely. There are breakthrough parties, and let me go to deep states. Deep states. I don't know what the hell it is with me sometimes, like slurring the words, but anyways, we can see right now that the center of Bakhmut actually falls within no man's land. It's somewhere around right here. And let me go to the Google Earth map to try and see if it does. To try and find the famous building that everyone goes, hey, look, we're in the center of Bakhmut, and then they show what's around them. So it should be somewhere like right here, I think. Let me check to make sure. No street view? What? That's all right. So we had to drop down here. Okay, this isn't it. Where the hell? Because you know what I'm talking about, man. That electronics store building with the round front to it.
Yeah, I think so.
Where the hell is that? Because I swear, for the entire war, it was like somewhere around here, and now I can't find it.
I could never really tell you where that was, but I do know the building you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know where in the world that is. I know someone will probably be able to give us the coordinates to that here in a second. But to go ahead and address the poll while we're waiting for those coordinates to figure out where the center of the city actually is, I would say it's most likely a breakthrough party because from what we can understand, the center of Bakhmut, at least from where I thought it was, would have been in the middle of no man's land right now, and the Russian forces have not actually taken that ground as of right now. They are getting a little close to it, and it is in no man's land, meaning that it's contested and there are ongoing battles in between the Russians and Ukrainians right there, but that does not mean that the Wagner has taken it. The Wagner taking it means the Ukrainians would have been actually pushed back out from there, and we haven't seen that yet, at least according to the Frontline information. So I would have to take that with a grain of salt for now until we actually see that the Ukrainians have been pushed out of that area permanently, or at least for the time being. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. If we don't have another one, I think we don't have another one, if I'm correct.
Yes, that was our third and last one for now. So, of course, we are moving in to our super chat questions. And the first one we have is from Rob Eisman, who puts in a $100 donation. And Rob, thank you very much for that support. And sadly, some sad news. He says, today I lost a fellow submariner. No reason for it, really. Maybe he didn't have an LSA providing support, or he forgot what we did. To the LSA, never forget that the love in your heart reaches farther than you could ever imagine. And dedicated to Ray, SSBN 654, run silent, run deep.
And I thank you so much for the support, Rob. I'm terribly sorry to hear about that, because I know that being a submariner is a pretty tough job from what I've understood. And on top of that, it has a very tight-knit community among submariners. And I hate to hear that, unfortunately, you've lost a great friend today. It's of course, always important to remember that people are always going through stuff. Almost everyone's always going through something somewhere, and folks always need a little bit of backing up and support. Folks are social creatures, first and foremost. It's just a part of who people are, and you always have to make sure to keep up with the friends and making sure to keep a track of them and keep their spirits up. And we try and do that the best we can here. I hate that we never really got to know your friend, but still, I hate to hear that, and I'm sorry for the loss. And also, let's pull up real quick SSBN 654 to take a look at what kind of submarine he was on. So it was the USS George C. Marshall, a Benjamin Franklin class submarine. And here's a picture of it in 1966. Wow, that's actually interesting. When was it?
Is it nuclear?
Yes, it was nuclear. It was decommissioned in 1992, and it was scrapped in 1994.
Oh, wow. So, dang.
Yeah, so that thing was stricken just after the Gulf War was over.
Geez. So, well, never mind. I won't ask that. I was going to sound ignorant. Never mind.
But man, that's actually wild. I mean, like, that is something too. It doesn't really look that old of a submarine, which kind of shows you how little, at least externally, submarines have evolved since the Benjamin Franklin class. Because I think some of the modern Ohio class submarines look a lot like this one as well. But regardless, I hate to hear your loss, Rob, and I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that if y'all have someone out there that served in the armed forces, of course, a lot of people go through tough times in the armed forces, out of the armed forces, all kinds of things. Make sure to reach out to those folks and make sure to get them involved in a community or something, because that really does help folks out. And we've heard from a lot of people here that they have really enjoyed this channel, and it's helped to give them a little bit of optimism. And so if y'all can provide that just on y'all's own to a friend, make sure to do that, because sometimes it's incredibly important. And so with that, we are on to the next one, but I hate to hear it once again, Rob.
Yes, and rest in peace to Ray, and also thanks for his service as well. And up next, we have a $100 super chat from John Dameron, as well as a $50 super chat from Alice Houston. And sadly, no comments to address on either one of those, but John and Alice, thank you very much for very generously supporting the channel and helping to keep us running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the huge support, John. You didn't throw in a comment. And I have to say it, I wish there was a comment, because I would love to actually address something, because we love talking to the folks who are a part of the Lee Spring Army. And so when someone sends in support without a comment, we're like, oh man, we can't really do anything like look at a town, like where you're from, or answer a question. But I still thank you so much for the support. It's massive support, and helps this channel to keep on rolling behind the scenes. And without folks like y'all, this wouldn't be possible. And so I got to thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you, John, for being a Lee Spring Army soldier. Of course, some of y'all are wondering, how in the world do you become a member of the LSA? If you're here and you want to be one, you are one. There is no like membership fee or anything like that. You don't have to send in a super chat. You don't have to do anything. You just have to say, I'm LSA, you're then LSA. Just please make sure to carry the LSA properly. And so with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the last one of this segment, and then we'll be moving on into the Frontline news.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops, and he's over there clamoring behind the screen. I don't even have to see him to know what he's looking like right now. He puts in a $20 super chat, and he puts in a song. And this song will be sung by the Enforcer, because Enforcer Matt doesn't sing. And Enforcer Matt doesn't want this little clip to come back and haunt him later. So take it away. It's in your DMs.
Oh, no. I'm scared, man. What in the world? Oh no. I read it. I read it in its entirety. I was like, maybe I can read a part of it. No. No. I can't read any of that. So I hate to say it, Psyops, but I do thank you for the support, and I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. But sadly, I don't think we'll be able to sing the song, because the song is it's
spicy.
It's a little spicy, to say the least. We try and keep it PG on here, although we watch folks in the middle of a war. We always try and keep it PG, because otherwise YouTube's not happy. And we never want the YouTube overlords to be unhappy, because then our kneecaps disappear, and we're wheelchair bound for eternity. And, you know, I honestly like my knees, and I want to keep, like, walking as long as I can until they give out. So
I like my knees and Vietnamese.
I like my Vietnamese, but still, thank you for the support. I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we're now going to be moving on out of this question segment and on into the Frontline news, starting off in the northeastern area. And of course, over the past 24 hours, y'all probably will not be expecting this. No Frontline movements whatsoever in the northeast. Once again, the situation remains the same. If the Ukrainians were to advance in this area, they'll most likely be advancing in the direction of Starobilsk, and the Russians appear to be launching some kind of a small advance from the area of Kremenna towards Torskay, and then trying to move on down to Liman. This will put them in a launching position if they take Bakhmut, to try and swing a large claw around Slovyansk and Kramatorsk and take the two largest cities that still remain in Ukraine's hands in the Donetsk Oblast. That is highly unlikely, however, because they can hardly even take Bakhmut, they can hardly even push towards Torskay in the middle of open fields, and so what would the chances be that they'd be able to swing that far in such a distance and in such an amount of time that it would be successful? Highly unlikely. Anyways, moving on into the northeastern area, we did see a Ukrainian drone knock out a Russian drone today. We saw some drone-on-drone action right here, and I'm sure that many of y'all will be very happy to see it. When you see the Russian drone right here, in bright red, coming straight off of the AliExpress store. We now see the Ukrainian drone coming down on top of it, and the Chad Amazon.com Ukrainian drone absolutely floored the Alibaba drone. We can see it sitting there on the ground, and that thing is out of the action. very sad to see. And I hate to know that Mr. What's the name of the guy who owns
Jack
Ali?
Ma?
Yeah, I hate to hear that Jack Ma's suicide will be reported tomorrow. We're now going to be moving on. I mean, if a Chinese product fails on such a large world stage, Matthew, the risks are high. And that man
But he just came back. He can't go away already.
Dude, he's sitting there right now. He's going, I still think that Ali chat should, Ali intelligence should be a thing. And then the Chinese security comes in and picks him up like they did the former premier of China in the CCP Congress. And he goes to Xi and touches his hand and goes, "I remember you." And then he gets dragged off and no one ever sees him again. We may have gone into too much detail there. Here comes the YouTube overlords. Anyways, we're moving on down to Chernopapivka in between Svatove and Kremenna, where we saw something really interesting. Some of y'all may remember old films, very old films from the Second World War era and the Korean Vietnam era, where you would see a guy in a fob or something similar. He would run up to a wall and there would be literally just like one of those normal like house phones that you would see in a house back in the day, just hanging on the wall. He picked the thing up and he would call up the commander or something and then start telling him about the situation. Well, lo and behold, the Russians are doing so bad and they're so pressed for radio communications equipment that they've brought back the field telephone and have mounted it onto the side of a tree somewhere in the Svatove-Kremenna area. There it is right there.
Damn.
Oh my god.
No. It's like one of those old school like bathroom phones.
Yeah, and look, they even have a thermometer over here on the tree. This is literally a Russian post right here. This tree is a Russian post. And right here it says taxophone. So I wonder what
And you pick up the phone and you might hear Stalin.
taxophone mean in Russian. Let's see here. Yeah, it's a taxophone. What does that mean? It's a payphone. It literally translates to payphone. It's not a payphone though. It's a field telephone. Oh my god, this is
Hey man, don't put it past the Russians. They might make the soldiers pay to use it to contact command.
And they even put the logo of the company I'm guessing that made the field telephone above it in duct tape. Oh my god.
Oh damn.
This is pitiful.
Oh my goodness.
In the next picture, we can also see the field telephone set in entire right here. And so you actually get a good look of what the inside's made of. And I can tell you, this thing is certainly possible for the Russians to produce in the present day, right now. It's not that advanced, but it's really pitiful to think that the second greatest army in the world, in heavy quotations, is now resorting to using field telephones like this one. When the hell was the TA-57 even made? TA-57 telephone. Let's see. In 1957? Oh my
How do
god!
they keep these things in working order from 1957?
Oh, bled, the Soviet Union is so great. We put shit in storage that we don't even remember. And then 70 years later, we go, oh, hey, we could use this thing.
Hey, there's one for 39 euros.
39 euros! Oh yeah, we gotta look at
That's
this one.
cheap.
Let's see. Also be used for remote control of radio stations. Phone could be used in MB and UB marked in red circle in the photo gallery. 40 euros! 40 whole euros for the field telephone set. This is sad. You know, they ought to give up at this point. If you have to start using almost what's a payphone on the front lines, you've lost it. And hell, some of y'all may remember a long time ago, I used to talk about how badly Russian communications are in their army, and that during the Georgian War in 2008 and 2009, they actually had to resort to using roadside payphones to call up command. And it looks like they've now finally gotten to that point in the Ukraine war, and they're now putting up field telephones. Pitiful. Pitiful. This is sad. I can't even put enough emphasis on the P in pitiful. This is terrible. We're moving on.
This is the iPhone 14 of the Russians.
Oh, dude, the Russians are always sitting there, it's getting a little bit, but we can bear it. And meanwhile, they're using crap from the 1940s, like a 1940s fan, a 1940s radio, 1940s light bulbs. Like, I don't even, dude, Russia must be a massive antique store. Because the fact that they have a working one of those things at this point in time in history, it's like, it's ridiculous. It's so sad.
Yeah, the Russians missed their calling. Instead of being a dictatorial regime invading countries, they should have like opened an antique store and played it safe.
Dude, the biggest antique store. I guess you could say, Matthew, that it is the biggest
bird.
bird.
I knew that was coming.
And so with that, we're moving on into the actual battlefield of Kremenna, where we can see that a turret toss was had today. And so everyone pull out the scorecards. How good was this turret toss? It hit a landmine right there. You can see the tank's already on fire. The turret toss is about to happen. And there we go. There goes the turret, clean off the screen. Probably several hundred feet right here in view, and the turret goes, and it's gone. A couple of seconds.
10 out of 10.
And, oh my god, did you see the airtime it got off camera? Let's count that real quick. We gotta count that. Alright, so 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7, 6 seconds
1
out of
Alabama.
frame. 1 Alabama, 2 Alaska, 3 Minnesota. But anyways, that is one hell of a toss right there. That was a straight up 10. I've never seen anything get that much airtime off frame. And just from the top of the drone's camera to the ground itself where that thing took off, has to at least be 200 feet. So who knows how much higher it went in the air off camera. But that thing went into low Earth orbit.
I gotta say, that's one of the better ones I've seen in a long time.
I know, it's been a long, you know, now let me sound like those people in the movies. It's been a long time since I've seen a turret toss like that. Takes a toke of a cigarette real quick.
Yeah.
Shit. But yeah, that was one hell of a turret toss. We can also see something else burning over here. Disregard that. It was most likely a miscellaneous object. You know, some Russian APC or something. Who really cares? This is just another one that bit the dust. 1 in thousands at this point. And we actually heard, Matthew, that Roscosmos is working on putting the Soyuz capsule on top of a T-72 to send them to orbit because they're seeing how well it's doing for the turrets.
Yeah, it could be it.
Oh, man. Anyways, with that's the end of that clip. I love to see it. We're now going to be moving on out of the area of Kremenna and Torskay, the Kremenna-Torskay battlefield where that happened, and now into the town of Severodonetsk. Severodonetsk is actually a fairly sizable town. Severodonetsk and Lysychansk had a combined population of around 250,000 people before the battle actually arrived at the city. Once the battle was over, only a few thousand people live in both of these towns now, and we do not know if the Russians are attempting to colonize the towns by bringing in Russian-speaking people from Russia to live there, but they most certainly are not. And before we get into the... Well, actually, I'm going to get into this and show you all the pictures and then explain, because I think that would be better. So... this is what the town of Severodonetsk looks like almost 8 months after the battle ended there. Really 9 months, I believe. But as you can see, every single building is still damaged and almost completely destroyed. These things will have to be torn down and rebuilt after the war. And in the next picture, you can once again see more damage. In the other one, you can see even totally different apartments in another part of the city, completely destroyed, heavily damaged. You can still see that some citizens live within these buildings. And right here, you can also see what appears to be a small camp that some Ukrainians have made in the burned-out city, trying to survive somehow, one way or another. Well, you can actually see that there's coffee coming out of this van, because it says it right there. It says coffee on the bottom. So
I would have never guessed that, but I would like some.
I would like some too. But what's really interesting about the city of Severodonetsk is that nothing has been done to fix this town up. And this is a complete antithesis to what the Russians said they were doing in Mariupol. In Mariupol, they say that they're rebuilding the entire town as they speak, and they're giving all of the Ukrainians a nice home. All of the ones that are left living, minus about the 50,000 or so we know are dead and have been buried in a mass grave outside of the city. They are not doing the same thing for Severodonetsk, however, because Severodonetsk does not have the eyes and attention of the public and the world at large on it. And so there is no propaganda victory for the Russians to have in this area rebuilding this city. And you can see right there, their aim in rebuilding Mariupol isn't actually to sit there and be the great liberators they want to sit there and laud themselves to the world to be and have people believe that. Their entire aim with rebuilding Mariupol is to just try and look good for the cameras. Because in cities that actually need it, much like Mariupol, like Severodonetsk, which was damaged as heavily as Mariupol, they are putting in absolutely no efforts to renovate or rebuild any of these buildings to make it livable for the Ukrainians that are still here. And that shows you what they're really about. We're now going to be moving on from this little bit of news and on out of Severodonetsk and further on down the line and into Bakhmut. We have seen something that I will have to say is somewhat concerning to me today. And we'll get on down to the Bakhmut front to show it. And this is what the battlefield looked like on the 31st of March, which was yesterday. This is what the battlefield looks like today. We can see that the Russians were actually able, according to Deep State UA, to take the Azov in its entirety and even push into the next several blocks. If we look at the street view here near the Azov plant, we can see that these blocks are not completely empty, they are low density residential buildings, which have most likely been destroyed and reduced to rubble, making the defensive positions fairly formidable, yet somehow the Ukrainians either withdrew from that or they were pushed out of it by this Russian force. We do not know if this is showing that the Russians were able to conduct a breakthrough in the northern end of the city, but one thing that it is showing is that it is a little concerning. We have not really seen an advance of this size at any part of the war so far, and we see now that a defensive line appears to be being made somewhere on the railroad tracks here just south of the Azov, which you can see here. It's a sizable berm from what we can understand for both sides, and so it's a natural defensive barrier in the city and most likely where the battle will evolve from there. Still, it's something concerning to me to see a movement like that, because we measure the Battle of Bakhmut in houses. We usually don't measure them in blocks taken, and considering that these are some sizable blocks that are inside of the city of Bakhmut, I'm not that happy with seeing them being taken, and it may be showing that the Ukrainians have finally decided that a withdrawal from the town, or giving up a decent amount of it, may be within their necessary advantage to try and set up new defensive lines. Once again, we're just taking that all from the advance today. It may have just been a fluke, and we may see the Ukrainian defenses continue on as normal, but it is fairly interesting, and hopefully the Ukrainians can continue to hold Bakhmut and continue to bleed Russian forces in this area dry. We're now going to be moving on into the videos that we got from this area, starting in the northeast outside of the city, and more so in the fields around the M03 highway, where we saw a tank firing on Bakhmut.
Oh, someone.
Oh, yeah, techno. Yeah.
Someone get Liver King in here. They're playing the Chad music.
Have you ever eaten liver?
Have you ever eaten raw meat? I know I haven't. I just get steroids.
We can see the tank firing into the distance. We can also see the Ukrainian firing off the NSV on the top of the turret. We now see them still firing the machine gun, the tank lining up its gun and firing. And it appears that they're firing at a considerable range over the hills, most likely almost like in a cannon would back in the 19th century. Trying to come up with the best words to explain it. We can now see a time lapse of them continuing to fire at the Russians in the distance. We see them continuing to fire, and we can now see some footage showing the impacts in the distance. A mouse cursor being brought on screen to show it.
That's nice.
And with that, that's the end of the clip, but a little bit of a look. A little bit of a one at the 3rd Armored Brigade, which is a part of the Azov, firing at the Russians in the fields outside of the city of Bakhmut. Meanwhile, while the Russians did take the Azov today, apparently the Ukrainians slammed down a Tachka straight into the center of it, and we saw that on film today as well. We don't know what kind of losses the Russians endured in this missile attack, we're not exactly sure, but a Tachka does have a large explosive yield, something around, I believe, 750 pounds to 500 pounds, and that's a little bit of a rough estimate off the top of my head from what I last remembered. So it may have been able to cause some pretty decent damage to Russian forces, maybe some pretty high losses, but once again, we don't really know. But here's the impact. It's right there.
Это было хорошо,
Точечка наша.
Ну трошки не туди, как.
Та нормально, там куда ни попади.
Заказуй другу.
Та ты
Пойдёт.
это...
And we now see it in infrared. Oh my, wow, that was actually really impressive in infrared. That thing looks to have blown a whole building away. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But it's very nice to see that the Ukrainians used the Tachka on the Azov today. But once again, we do not know what kind of losses that sustained for the Russians. We don't know if they were high. We don't know if it was largely effective. It did hit on one of the buildings to the southern end of the Azov complex, which may mean that there were Russian forces in it. And I believe if we were looking at this correctly, it was this building here, and also to have hit this area. So it may have actually caused some casualties, considering that the Russians were pushing from that building into the city blocks over here. In fact, when you think about it, the Ukrainians may have actually withdrawn from this area and back over across the railroad tracks. That's why the Russians were able to make a pretty sizable advance, because there is a berm right here, and there's no way to get supplies across that berm without going over it and then exposing yourself. So there will really be no way to get supplies to the troops there, and so they most likely withdrew to the other side because the defensive locations were better. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Azov complex and down into the center of Bakhmut, where we got an update on Bakhmut from the soldier Roman. Sadly, Roman does not say "Always Caesar." He just gives updates on Bakhmut. But still, that's pretty cool.
Так, хоч сьогодні і 1 квітня, але я не жартую. Пора зав'язувати вже з війною, перемагати. Бо це заняття дуже набридає.
You know what? I feel like I need to read these subtitles because they are very hard to read, and also I said I'd do that, so let me do that real quick. So today is 1st of April, day of jokes.
Але я не жартую.
But I'm not kidding.
Зав'язувати вже з війною.
It's time to finish the war by our victory.
Бо
Because such things
дуже набридає.
becomes very boring.
Воювало декілька днів.
So we was few days on combat mission, and there are not so much desire to fight.
Ну, точніше.
I mean, we ain't stopped fighting, but we want to win. What are these subtitles? So let's do it together. Work hard, destroy terroristic state,
Знищимо цю терористичну державу і нарешті
and
буде
eventually start live our lives fullest. I just recorded a video where I say there are no assaults in such weather.
ну, точно нічого не буде.
This is during the blizzard.
Так одразу
And immediately received a message that 3 groups of enemy special forces are approaching us.
на наші позиції. Зараз будемо відбувати.
So we are preparing to fight.
Думаю, буде круто.
I think it's going to be legendary. As in the words of Bald and Bankrupt, absolute legends. But with that,
Man, this guy's speaking like he's from Alabama or something.
dude, the subtitles are not doing any favors, man. They need to find a way straight to subtitles. Be like, hey, stop it, and get someone else, man. But
Yeah,
still,
written by Cletus.
dude, man, I was sitting there reading that. That we prepared for war. It's like what?
We ain't have no defeat on my turf.
That ain't my purse. I don't know you. Get off my property. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. Not making fun of Roman. Roman's a great guy. He's been putting out updates on the city
No,
of
it's a
Bakhmut.
subtitler.
Yeah, it's the subtitler that we're roasting right now because whoever did the subtitles, ooh. Anyways, y'all need to learn how to speak. Amen. And with that, we're moving on from the center of Bakhmut and down towards the area of Opitne, where we saw a Wagner house get destroyed. We can see the yellow fingers pointing exactly where we need to see. We can see some Wagner guys around the small little hut, and we're about to see the hut get disintegrated. There's the hut again, and the hut disappears. Oh my god, it really did. It's gone. Oh my god. The walls are gone. Everything's gone. That's like, it looks like a tornado ripped this thing up. Dude, the Wagner guys went into the house and said, "It's a great day to be criminal, taken from prison to fight in Ukraine. Named after a musical composer, блядь. I'm going to listen to Wagner's 8th Symphony, блядь." And then the Ukrainians went, "Nah, man, you're going to be listening to this." And then the house is just gone.
Oh, blyat. I went from behind bars to under walls.
Dude, they started playing that song that goes, if anyone knows what I'm talking about, you know. I don't know what the song is, and that was a very bad rendition of it, but if you know, you know. Anyways, that's the end of that clip. The Wagner won't be fighting from that house anymore, and the guys that went inside that house, well, they never came back out. It's kind of like a magic trick. Anyways, we're moving on from that and into our last clip from the city of Bakhmut, where we saw the Azov unit on the front lines. Now, I gotta be honest with y'all, I would read the subtitles, but the subtitles are also in Ukrainian, so I don't really know what they're saying.
Хлопці воюють, а не там, де просто сидять в тилу і чистять картошку.
That's gotta be copyrighted, but that mag toss right there was sick. Look at that. When you see them hopping in a boat, riding in a boat, you can buy me a boat, firing off their machine guns, looking at night vision, running through trenches, firing their M4s, firing their mortars, driving their tanks, firing their mortars, hitting tanks, firing their artillery, firing their AGS, petting a dog, firing an RPG, firing a machine gun, firing their guns, firing more guns, and even more guns, and the wall fell off, and the grenades are firing, and this guy's talking, and this guy's joking and smiling. Wow, Azov. What a fun way to spend the summer. And so with that, that's the end of the clip.
That's like the intro to a Top Gear episode. Today, James will run a car into a tree. Richard crashes another car.
Tonight on top. Wait a minute, hang on. I cannot do it. I'm going to stop right there. Can't do Jeremy Clarkson. We're going to end that. But anyways, a very interesting video of the Azov. And so with that, we're now moving on from that clip. And we're now moving on from the city of Bakhmut, now moving south towards the southern area. We don't get a lot of news of the southern flank of the Battle of Bakhmut any longer. It appears to be somewhat active, somewhat inactive, actually. But they are holding the highway, the T-0504, which is all that matters for Ukraine. But we did see today that the 36 went clearing Russian trenches. And we got to see this on drone video. As you can see, this once was a tree line. Now it's nothing more than a firewood line where you can pick up any firewood you want absolutely free. You just have to deal with the artillery making even more firewood, and then maybe even making ground beef out of some of the guys in the tree line, mostly the Russians. From what we understand, this is the 36th Brigade right here, and they're moving on towards the trench. The trench is controlled by the Russians, from what we understand. We can see them lobbing another grenade into the trench. We can see a Russian right there, and the grenade just exploded right on top of him. So I guess you could say his shoulder is a little sore. We can now see the ammunition also cooking off behind him, and the Ukrainians went up and appear to have finished the job. They're now firing still onto the trench. There are more Russians inside of it, and we can see one right there. Actually, we can see, nothing right there anymore. We now see them still firing into the trench. And we can see them just laying down the fire. A pretty large amount of it. And it appears that there's a little hole into a bunker right here, which is where most of the Russians may be at this point. We can see that the Ukrainians appear to be lobbing grenades at the opening. Actually, they're still lobbing grenades where that one Russian was. See them still firing. You see them kind of moving around the corner and still firing at the Russian. We now see them getting back down as another grenade explodes in that spot. That Russian must be finished. Oh man, if only Finland had joined the Russians, I guess the Russians would be finished. But nope, they're just dead. But anyways, we can now see them advancing onto the Russian position there. And we can't really tell if they got them all. But we do know that they got the guys up here on the northern end of the trench. We don't know if they got the ones that may have been in the bunker. Maybe all the ones came out of the bunker and they got all of the ones in the trench. But nonetheless, that was the 36th Brigade cleaning up a Russian trench in a mostly destroyed tree line. And it appears that the Russians had a fairly bad day. And the Ukrainians actually had a fairly successful one as far as the video went. We're now moving out of the Battle of Bakhmut and down into the Donetsk area. And of course, we know that the Battle of the Donetsk front is still continuing. And the wine glass is still continuing to shape around Avdiivka. Although we haven't seen any movements on that wine glass today. It appears that the front line has once again entered a state of stagnation in this area. And the Russians, no matter how hard they try, are not able to create any kind of visible advance. However, in the area near New York, and I said that correctly, that is New York, we saw the Atom unit hitting the Russians. And the Russians hit, actually, the Atom unit hits on the Russians better than my uncle beat on me. I'm just kidding.
What? No.
What? We can now see the mortar rounds hitting around where the Russians are inside of this destroyed village. We can see one hit right on top of them, taking out a few of them. We can now see the mortar rounds landing on top of the Russians once more near a compound. We can see them trying to run into the compound that was just being shelled. We can now see an SPG hiding under a camo net and some Russians moving away from it. And now the artillery is coming down right on top of all of it, giving it a nice little smattering of artillery shells. We can now see them taking a wounded guy to the Scooby-Doo van. Like, zoink, Scoob! I think this guy's wounded. Raggy, blood loss. But anyways,
an alternative world for Russia, the dog is actually a cannibal dog.
Scooby-Doo. Dude, Scooby sits there like, Zoink, Scoob! I think we just got ourselves a Scooby snack. Raggy, fresh meat. But anyways. Oh, blöd. But anyways, we're moving on from that area. The Atom unit did get them pretty well with the artillery. And we're now moving all the way out of the southern front. No video evidence was collected beyond that one today. And on into the area of Volodar, where we saw that the Russians were using incendiary shells overnight on Ukrainian positions in the city. Most likely trying to burn the Ukrainians out of the tall apartment buildings that they've been able to control the entire area with. We can see the incendiary coming down and burning the town. Of course, it is largely a war crime to use incendiaries like this on a built-up area because there could be civilians here, and killing civilians with incendiaries, or any weapon for that matter, is a war crime. But of course, the Russians persist in using incendiaries, and we can see that they blanketed practically one entire side of the town with it. So with that, you see once again the incendiaries burning, and that's the end of the clip. But once again showing what the Ukrainians are going through in the Battle of Volodar and trying to hold that town. They possibly have to go through getting burned alive by incendiary like white phosphorus, or some people say it's thermite. I don't really know which it is. I'm assuming it's white phosphorus because white phosphorus, from what we understand, is far more common. We're moving on to the next clip from the area in Volodar, where we saw that the Russians did launch an offensive today, and apparently it failed in terrific fashion. Terrific is kind of a proper word to use. You can see right here, the Russians have added a couple of new vehicles to the burn pile near the ones that were already destroyed in this area. It appears that the offensive failed outright, and even at BTR tried to do one of those cool stunt flip things that you do in the movies, where you like fly off a ramp, but they tried to use one of the burned BMPs as a ramp, and it looks like they just flipped the thing over and it got stuck there. Still, not really a good day for the Russians, as you can tell. Once again, more losses. We're actually seeing some pretty expensive and rare vehicles at this point for the Russians. For example, 2 BMP-3s were lost right here, and those are actually getting quite rare. They only had a few hundred of those going into the war, and over the course of the war, we've seen a decent amount of these things get destroyed. They may only have about a third or a quarter of their original BMP-3 force left. We also saw some T-80s. One right here. We also saw a T-72B3 right there, a T-72B right there, a BTR-82 that has been abandoned, and another BTR-82 that was also abandoned over there. In the last picture, we can once again see the cluster of vehicles, but this is from a different direction. We can even see another BMP-3 that apparently had some kind of an ammo detonation. The top of the roof of the APC came off, and the turret landed right beside the chassis of the BMP-3. Losses were pretty high, and of course the Russians were not able to make any kind of meaningful gain towards Volodar with these losses. We're now going to be moving on out of the area of the Battle of Volodar and further down the line and towards Staromlynivka, where we saw a D-20 that the Russians were using when Elmer Fudd mode. Many of y'all may know that Elmer Fudd is a cartoon character from Cartoon Network, or more like Hanna-Barbera, I believe it was, but let me...
Looney Tunes.
Elmer Fudd. Hopefully I can get one with a gun. Yep. Because nowadays he doesn't have a gun. Nowadays he's just a guy having a midlife crisis. Which kind of, oh my god.
What in the world is that?
Oh my god, that thing's nasty. Oh my god, someone put it down. Put that thing down. Here, Elmer Fudd, quick.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
Hunting rabbits?
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting miners. It's like,
Wait a minute.
Like what this guy's gonna say.
What is that picture? Go over to the left 3 with your mouse. What is that caption on this photo over here? Down 1? Over to the left. Look at this caption. What in the hell?
Elmer Fudd.
Who's writing these captions?
I don't know, man. Wait a minute, Elmer Fudd looked like that at the time? What the hell?
Bugs Bunny's looking wrong too.
Dude, Elmer Fudd, more like
Man.
Dilbert. What the hell? Who the hell is this guy? And why in the world is he wearing his collars like that, man? Jeez. I'm glad they revamped Elmer Fudd. But anyways, we can see he's in this picture, which is the one I guess we'll use. He is holding a rifle that appears to be having Putin syndrome. Very unfortunate.
Oh dear.
But I'm trying to find a specific picture because there's one where the gun splits, like the gun barrel splits. But I can't find it. Anyways, As many of y'all know, Elmer Fudd is famously known for getting blown up by a rabbit, and on top of that, the gun usually explodes, and the little barrel goes ripping apart in every single direction. We saw a D-20 artillery piece that the Russians were using, now in Ukrainian territory, apparently went Elmer Fudd mode and actually ripped the muzzle asunder. We can actually see that right here. Split it like a banana peel.
Damn.
Така хрень получилась. А? Нарезная.
So, dude, the Russians would be saying right now, so, can we still use it, or no?
И она свистит.
Man, that's one hell of a muzzle break right there. Never seen one like it.
Позиция там.
And so that's the end of the clip, but you can see right there, that was the whole reason why I brought up Elmer Fudd. That D-20 Elmer Fudded itself. And so with that, we're now moving on from that little clip and on into our next one further down the line in the area of Vishnevy, where we saw the 110th Brigade hitting the Russians. Oh, man. And here's the rock music coming in. But we can see the bomblet dropping, and we can see it explode. We can now see a Russian getting up and rolling, as per manual instructions. We can now see he's moved 12 feet over, which will protect him from falling bomblets. We can now see the footage moving on to the next clip. We can see a Russian right there crawling amongst the ground, crawling amongst the leaves. But little does he know, a predator high in the sky is watching him and getting ready to feast upon a meal. I feel like I should be doing a David Attenborough voice. Anyways, the bomblet drops, it explodes, and we don't really see much of a reaction from that Russian. It appears that he's just kind of chilling, and he's just vibing. However, the drone bomber persists and drops the second bomblet, this time making sure that he continues to chill. His body temperature will be chilly. We can now see the bomblet being dropped into a large, long trench, dug per manual instructions by the Russians. We can see the grenade explode in the trench. It appears that the Russians were actually saved. Apparently, even with a straight-line trench, the shrapnel was too weak at that point. We now see a bomblet being dropped, exploding, and it looks like they got one. But, alas, he gets back up, he looks up into the sky, and starts firing.
Oh, dummy.
Why was that like a Charlie Chaplin routine? He got hit and went, oof, and then got up and went, hey, and then started shooting up into the sky. We can now see a Russian hanging out here, bomblet being dropped, and, ooh.
Oh, that was dead on. No pun intended.
No pun intended, because that man is taking... Oh my god! Here we see a live herd of Russians running through the fields. Oh my god, man, there's like 12 of them. Dude, they really do look like a roving pack of zebras when they run like this. I mean, like, they really do. But anyways...
They're about as dumb as gazelle, too.
What's the noise that a gazelle makes, Matthew, if you could so enlighten us? That's a donkey. Man.
I don't know. Ask Duncan VR. He's probably in here somewhere. Let's see.
Duncan?
Is he in here? Yes, he is.
Hey!
Tell us, Duncan.
Tell us, Duncan. Tell us what is the noise that a gazelle makes. And so with that, we're moving on to our next bit of news further down the front line in between Huilopol and Oryx, where we saw the first use of an M58 mine clearing device behind an American MRAP. And so here's the video. Also, this thing is called an M58 McLick. That's what they call it when Mickey Mouse gets, I guess you could say, sexual assault allegations. So here's the video. We can see the mine-clearing device firing, and we can see the charge traveling on to the distance. We now see it laying itself out like a large tapeworm, and now it will explode very soon. Very soon. Any minute now. There we go.
Oh,
and the path has been cleared.
that was violent.
I have to say, it was quite violent. And I think that if there were any mines in that area, they're gone. I don't know why. I feel like they're gone, though. And we can also see the drone flying off to get us a nice wide shot. For some reason, this feels cinematic. And so, as the smoke began to lay, we saw that so-and-so became leader of the 5 points after literally using a M58 mine-clearing device on the other gangs in New York. And then, you know, the music fades and the credits roll, and it's made by like J.J. Abrams, and there's a million lens flares in the credits, even.
Yeah.
But anyways, with that, we're now moving on from that little bit of news. Very interested to see that mine clearing device being used. And with that, we've actually covered all of the news of the war in Ukraine today. And so we're
You
now
gotta be kidding me.
No, I'm not. I'm not kidding you. We like the fun. Well, actually, the fun has just begun because we're now going to the speech from President Zelenskyy, and then we'll be going into the question segment. And so,
Speech.
without further ado, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Підписав 2 укази щодо санкцій проти тих, хто працює на російську агресію. Це посадовці держави-агресора, її ВПК, сотні компаній та колаборанти. Йдеться про більш ніж 650 нових санкційних осіб. РНБО продовжить цю роботу, і жоден із тих, хто допомагає терористам, працює на них, постачає або виробляє зброю для терору, жоден не уникне відповідальності. Блокування спільників терору, ізоляція держави-терориста, її поразка, судові процеси – це те, що очікує усіх, хто розпочав і веде війну проти України та міжнародного порядку. До речі, цього тижня Швейцарія приєдналася до 10-го санкційного пакету Євросоюзу. Це важливо, коли держави, що є нейтральними у військово-політичному сенсі, все ж таки займають чітку моральну позицію по відношенню до російського терору, до руйнації Росією глобального порядку, заснованого на правилах. Лише у єдності ми можемо зберегти мир як основу міжнародних відносин. Я дякую Швейцарії за відповідні рішення. Говорив сьогодні з президентом Франції Еммануелем Макроном. Дуже детально говорили годину про ситуацію на фронті, про нашу взаємодію політичну, про те, як ми рухаємось в реалізації української формули миру. Дякую Франції за незмінну підтримку. Загалом тиждень дав низку позитивних новин для України, для нашого захисту, для захисту нормального життя усіх вільних націй. В рамках ОБСЄ почалась робота над першим окремим міжнародним звітом, що буде присвячений насильницькій депортації Росією українських дітей та спробам асиміляції наших дітей. Цей злочин Росії – один з найбільш цинічних та антилюдських злочинів нашого часу. Росія вчиняє його системно, прораховано на державному рівні. Системною буде і відповідальність за нього, відповідальність Росії як держави та усіх, хто причетний. Дякую Німеччині за нові кроки в оборонній підтримці, що були зроблені цього тижня. Дякую Хорватії за черговий пакет військової підтримки. Дякую Північній Македонії за рішення щодо гелікоптерів, Словаччині, Словенії. Дякую Канаді за фінансову підтримку. Кошти вже надійшли в державний бюджет України. Дякую МВФ за нову програму для України. Програму затверджено. Обсяг більше 15 мільярдів. Це допоможе нам берегти соціальну стабільність. На жаль, ми маємо і новину, очевидно, абсурдну і деструктивну. Сьогодні держава-терорист почала головувати в Раді безпеки ООН. Вчора російська армія вбила ще одну українську дитину, 5-місячного хлопчика, його звали Данило, з Авдіївці на Донбасі, разом із батьками. Батьки поранені. Російська артилерія. Один із сотень артилерійських обстрілів, які держава-терорист здійснює щодобово. І при цьому Росія головує в Радбезі ООН. Складно уявити щось таке, що більш доводить повне банкрутство таких інституцій. Немає такої форми терору, який ще не був би здійснений Росією. І не буде такої причини, яка зупинить реформу глобальних інституцій, зокрема Радбезу ООН, реформу, яка, очевидно, назріла, щоб держава-терорист і будь-яка інша держава, яка хоче бути терористом, не могла зруйнувати мир. Терористи повинні програти, повинні відповідати за терор, а не головувати будь-де. Слава усім, хто зараз в бою. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає Україні, хто захищає міжнародний порядок, заснований на правилах. Дякую всім, хто рятує, допомагає рятувати наших людей після поранень від російських обстрілів. Вічна пам'ять усім дорослим, дітям, чиє життя забрав терор Росії. Слава Україні!
And so with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. here on day 402 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And of course, that wraps up our entire news summary for tonight. I have to thank everyone who came in and watched tonight for watching, and I find it a high honor that we've been able to be the source of news for so many of y'all on the war in Ukraine. Of course, before y'all leave, we have not done this tonight, and it's obligatory. You have to join the Twitter.
Peter, keep the Twitter.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
That was actually the best one I've ever done. It was the exact fluctuations and everything. Anyways, this is Twitter. And you can actually see a comment right there that we said about the April Fool's jokes things, which we were very dedicated today, considering how many blunders we saw being made from everyone else to not make a single April Fool joke. So we haven't.
And in fact, we didn't make a single post today because I didn't want to put anything out that might be construed as an April Fool's joke. So we'll be back to tweeting actually when the stream's over, by the way.
Yes. Let's see here. And what are the comments on this? Call them out. Call them out. Just don't believe anything today. Come back tomorrow. Oh, you must have listened to Sweeper.
Yes.
You must have listened to Sweeper then.
I did.
But make sure to follow our Twitter. We post regularly on there. We have 4,553 followers over a very short amount of time. The Twitter has been wildly successful. And interestingly enough, it may become the place where the enforcer stays outside of YouTube. We're actually going to say this while most of y'all are still here. The Discord channel that we still have up, the briefing room, we will be closing that down largely, most likely after tonight's stream. The reason being...
to say.
Yeah, it's sad to say it because we know that a lot of people really do enjoy the Discord, but I hope y'all understand and hear me out here real quick in the explanation why. First, Matthew and me don't really have enough time to dedicate to moderating the thing. So, we would have to have moderators. Then the problem lies in that if we have moderators, it seems almost inevitable that there will be some kind of a schism. And we are not wanting to go through another schism. I know there's many moderators out there who were not involved in the previous schism that just happened about a few days ago. And to y'all, I thank y'all. Folks like Mace, y'all been great. And I never want any of the moderators, because it seems as though some of the moderators thought we were talking about moderators that weren't even directly involved in the schism and throwing them in the pot. We weren't. It was really just two of them, Rambo, Kurt, and Iceland, were the ones who pulled off the schism. The rest of y'all weren't at fault, but if you were banned afterwards, yeah, you were kind of going that way, and yeah, some of them actually did. So, anyways. We don't really want to have moderators because another schism would be inevitable, because it seems to be that that's happened twice now with both batches of moderators, so it just seems like it's something that inevitably happens. So
we're consolidating in the Twitter. We're going all in.
So we're consolidating in the Twitter. The Discord server will still exist. We're not deleting it because that Discord server had actually been around so long that it's not even called what the channel is called. It's actually called the Briefing Room, because the channel, when it originally opened way back a year and a half ago at this point, was actually called the Briefing. And so the channel's evolved, the name's evolved, but that server has remained there forever, ever since the very beginning of it. So we're not going to be getting rid of the server. We're just going to be we're going to be booting everyone from it pretty much, and then we're going to make a very, very small community on it. I mean, it's going to be like maybe 20 people or something like that. It's going to be minuscule. I hate to say it though, because Discord's been around for a while, but we just don't really have the time or the efforts to dedicate to it. And on top of that, the biggest decision that we didn't really mention is that it poses a massive security risk for us, because it is somewhat easy to break through security on Discord. It's very easy to pull people's IPs off of it, and that could be how we're getting DDoS, is that people get on our Discord server and then rip our IP off of it. So that's really the main reason why it's being shut down, but it's also being shut down for the reasons that we can't run it or anything. But we will still exist.
Honestly though, it's kind of a positive thing, because the Discord was beginning to take up so much of our time. It was distracting us from also making videos, doing other things with the Twitter that we might do in the future, like maybe hosting a Twitter talk space. So this will free us up to do things that are probably more desired by the entire community.
Also, real quick, since Bilbo Jenkins has been around forever, he asked, what was the schism? The schism was both times, moderators the first time wanted to tell me how to run the channel, And I told them outright, no, you don't work 60 hours a week. Well, at that point, it was like 80 hours a week on it. You don't work 80 hours a week on this. You're not the one running it. You're not going to tell me how to run it. So then they went and tried to defame me with anything they could pull out of their rear ends to try and destroy the channel pretty much, because they weren't able to tell me how to run it. And also they wanted to get paid and everything to be Discord moderators, which never happens. And then the second schism happened. From how we understand it, the second schism happened because they cussed PSYOPs out, you know, just to really drop names and show y'all how big of a deal it was. PSYOP's been around forever, huge member of the channel. All of y'all know him. Everyone loves him. He's a funny guy, and he's a great character. And they cussed him out. He left the mod team because of it. It was such a bad cussing out. So we got on there and said, hey, why in the world are you treating people like this? Because that's greatly disrespectful. We don't ever treat anyone like that. I've never treated any of y'all like that. And so I highly suggest, I didn't tell them to apologize. I said, I highly suggest that y'all apologize to him, and, you know, get everything moving on. So then apparently that pissed him off. And so then after that, they just started resenting us, hating us. And this Iceland guy started spreading lies, apparently, to people that the Lee Spring Army isn't even our community. It's his community, or it's just a community that randomly sits on YouTube. So we then sat there. Well, actually, we sat there a few nights ago, and we started getting told by some people that apparently there was another meltdown because PSYOPs tried to come back, and then the Iceland guy cussed him out again. Rambo Kurt left on his own at some point, but the Iceland guy cussed him out again, and so a whole schism started happening again, and he showed great distaste for Matthew and me, saying he pretty much didn't like us, and so we're like, yes, that is a schism.
Man, he called us all kinds of slurs. He's actually kind of a racist person because he said some slurs that I can't even repeat.
Yeah, so the guy sister does that. So we shut down the server that they made because, you know, we could have kept it running, but we don't know what kind of backdoors they made in it because we looked through the audit logs and it looks like this guy was making a backdoor into every channel everywhere, where even if I am the owner of it, he could subvert us anywhere we could. So we just shut the thing down, and then we moved to the other one, the old one. And now we've been sitting there and we've been seeing that, of course, the schism continues on because these people don't give up. They just make alternate accounts, and then they come on there and they try and spread lies about us and tell people a completely different story. And then for some reason, people believe them. A few people believe them every single time and go, I don't think we heard the whole story. And to that, it's like, why in the world, like with this guy, why in the world would we sit there? Like, when this guy said PSYOPs is a cash cow, it's like, no. We would just respect PSYOPs for being PSYOPs. He's an old guard on this channel, been around forever. He's been around ever since the channel was here, and we don't cuss anyone out or treat them rudely. So why in the hell would he be allowed to treat anyone rudely? It just doesn't make any sense. And so then the guy got booted, and of course, like the ones originally, it's the same route that they took. He sat there and said, oh, I'm going to vow my life to taking down his channel and his Twitter and everything else. And so yeah, now we actually had a little bit of research done on him. So you know, we're waiting for the moment that he tries. But anyways, that's the whole schism in a nutshell for you, Bilbo. That's what happened, and that's why we've decided that this Discord just gets shut down as well for the large part for everyone. Because it's going to happen again. If we try and bring in moderators, we make no qualms about it. And this is another thing they brought up is apparently, they're making money off of it. It's like, we don't make any illusion that we're not. When people send in a super chat, it does support us. It helps us to keep alive behind the scenes. It buys us gas, buys us food. It's the way we support ourselves. It's not like we lie to people about that. And, you know, it's not like we're hiding something from y'all either, because y'all can literally see every single super chat that comes in. You know, so if you ever want to know how much we make, just add up all the super chats and then multiply them all by 0.7, and that's what we make in a given night. It's not like it's a secret or anything. And
also, so what's even the point? The guy has this figure, this inflated figure. He's going around saying, "Look, this is what they made." It's like the donors obviously know that. They're the ones that donated the money.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's another thing, is every single time a moderator breaks away, they always act like we're robbing y'all or something. It's like y'all voluntarily give super chats. We don't tell y'all to. We don't sit there and force y'all to. Y'all just give them if y'all want. I mean, if we were really here for the money, I would be running ads on this thing. We would have sponsors on it. Y'all would have to pay for channel memberships. Y'all would have to pay to be active in the live chat like y'all do on other channels. We don't do any of that because we're here to cover the news, and I want to make it as accessible and as free as possible. And if y'all want to support us, y'all are the only thing that stops us from running another night or not, is whether y'all want to super chat and support the channel or not. That's up on y'all, and then y'all even get to decide how much y'all support us. So, you know, that's like the rundown. It's ridiculous, and it's really ridiculous that for some reason people sit there and go, I don't think we've heard the whole story. Yeah, you have. I mean, like, you know, that is what it is. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on into the polls. But I wanted to explain why the Discord was getting shut down, so that's the nutshell. And so with that, we are on into the polls. What do we got, Matthew?
All right, so let's hop right into those polls, and we have 4 of them to address. And the very first one says, is the U.S. taking strong enough measures to ensure the release of the jailed Wall Street Journal journalist? Looks like 33% said, yes, we are doing our best. 31% said unsure, 9% said somewhat, and 26% said no, we could do more. And like I've seen a lot of people saying tonight, I think this fella is going to be the fund for Russia to try to negotiate the release of more Russian prisoners that are being held by the West. So unless we start releasing people that Russia wants us to release, sadly, I don't think the fella is going to be coming back home anytime soon. That's just a sad reality of it, I think. But Enforcer, I don't want to choke up here. What say you?
But I would say that's probably the truth, is that the guy probably won't be coming back for a good while, because I can't. Well, then again, you know, we had Victor Bout somewhere just in the nether. No one even knew he was really here anymore. So we may have another person to exchange. Hopefully, though, we don't exchange a basketball player for someone called the Merchant of Death again, because, you know, while that was what we had to do, at the same time, it's like that seems like a very uneven exchange to unleash an arms dealer onto the world in exchange for a basketball player. You know, it's like the basketball player couldn't go around and kill thousands of people. The arms dealer indirectly can. So, you know, it's like, I don't know. Hopefully, if we have to do an exchange like that, though, for this reporter, it is a even exchange. So with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the second poll says, Russia says weapons production has increased significantly, but they don't provide any numbers. And what are your thoughts? 69%. I have no idea how that happens almost every night, but 69%, nice, said it's likely a lie. 4% said unsure, 22% said they probably did somewhat, and 5% said it's probably true. Now, the fact they're not giving numbers and they want people to believe that, they must think everyone is stupid. But us in the West, we are not stupid. And I would say that it's mostly a lie. They've probably increased it somewhat, but like a lot of people were also saying tonight, when you create nothing and then you create one item, I guess you could call that an increase, a significant one. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that for the large part. It is a little bit of a significant increase. And actually, Matthew, can you reread the first part of that poll so that way I can make sure I heard that correctly?
Yeah, the first part said Russia says weapons production has increased significantly, but provides no numbers.
In some areas, I could see that happening, especially before the Yaroslav fire. I could see them definitely upping the production of Euro 4320s and basic supply trucks like that. That's certainly within the realm of possibility. It's also within the realm of possibility that they could have massively upped the amount of artillery shells they're producing, because they're fairly easy to make. But in other categories, there is no production. Like, for example, with modern main battle tanks, there is absolutely no production, because tanks like the T-72B3 actually had to have sights imported from the French to be able to function. And without sights, a tank's useless. Well, the tank's gun is useless, so the tank in its own right is also useless. So I would say that in some categories it has increased, but that is very misleading, because the categories that kind of do matter in the long run, like having tanks on the front line to support the infantry, those have not increased whatsoever. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a poll that says, do you believe Ukraine can hold on to Bakhmut for much longer? It looks like 61% said yes, Ukraine will hold Bakhmut, 10% said unsure, 17% said I'm slightly worried, and 12% said no, Ukraine will lose it eventually. And I have to admit that Bakhmut has always been a worry to me. Not that Ukraine isn't putting up a good fight, but simply because Russia is so determined to take that one particular city, and it seems like they're not giving up on it. They're devoting a ton of resources to that one particular area. So I'm going to say I'm slightly worried. I'm with the 17%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to honestly say, I do think they will eventually take it, because if we look at the map, it's taken them ages, but the Ukrainians are slowly falling back out of the town. And one thing everyone has to remember, and, you know, it doesn't matter if the Ukrainians hold the town. It's been known since the start. It's been known since the beginning of this battle almost a year ago during the first Battle of Bakhmut. Bakhmut holds no real strategic significance as a town. That's been known. The only strategic significance that this town had was its geography and the hills surrounding it and how difficult it would be to actually push into the town and take it. And y'all can see the proof is in the pudding. It's been extremely difficult for the Russians to take this town, mostly because of the geography surrounding it and the kill zones that the Ukrainians made as a part of their defensive positions due to the hills that surrounded the city. That was the whole reason why the Battle of Bakhmut ever went on and went on for this long. Otherwise, the Ukrainians could have really just put up a fight here, withdrew to more suitable positions behind the town, and continued the fight there. But it's really just about the geography of where the town is, and I guess you could say the terrain around it that made it an exceptional battlefield. So it's really just to soak up Russian casualties, to get loads of damage to Russian armor forces, Russian infantry, and then if the Russians take it, they take it. Oh, well, it didn't really matter because the town wasn't important. It was just the land around it that was important because there were some hills there you can defend from. So that's really my take on Bakhmut. If the Russians do take it, and I feel like they will, because it's just eking on so slowly, but they are making small amounts of progress. They will eventually take the town. But who even cares? I mean, you know, everyone keeps on making this out to be a big deal. It's only a town that was big enough to house 70,000 people. Severodonetsk and Lysychansk combined could house 250,000 people. Kherson was a city of 300,000 people. You know, these towns in size were far more important and strategically far more important to hold as towns than Bakhmut ever was, and it never lost the Ukrainians the war that they lost both of these towns at one point or another during the war. So that's my take on it. You know, and that's just my opinion. Everyone can have an opinion because this kind of stuff is really more of an opinion whether you find Bakhmut to be important or not. My opinion is that it isn't, but if you do, I mean, like, hey, I guess it is what it is. But with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the fourth poll says Ukraine says it has received over 35,000 new recruit applications to fight in the war. And what are your thoughts? 42% said great, and that is a promising sign. 32% said that's not going to be enough. 4% said unsure, and 22% said any troops are good. And 35,000 volunteers, that's a hell of a lot more than you're going to see in Russia, unless they're grabbing people off the streets over there in Russia. But I will say that's probably not enough to meet the goals to perform the counteroffensive if I had to take a guess at it, but I don't know for certain. So they might have to do some conscription or recruiting elsewhere. But Enforcer, what say you?
It sounds like a fairly good number, and if we assume that the Ukrainians are taking, let me see, how do we say this? If they're taking a ratio of losses compared to the Russians of, let's say, 6-1 in terms of the infantry. Let me divide that real quick. They have 100. Yeah, no, it's scary sounding, isn't it?
Maths, quick maths.
173,000 Russian soldiers. Divide that by 6. So that means the Ukrainians are probably taking around 28,833 soldiers dead. You know, not including the wounded. So that number in the course of a month is what they're saying.
35,000. They didn't specify the time period. That's a good question.
If it really depends over the period of time right there that they're getting those recruits. If it's over the course of a month, that's actually a great enlistment figure to have. If it's over the course of several months, that's probably not too great because I don't know if that will be just keeping up with the amount of losses they're taking or not. We also know that the Ukrainians are conscripting soldiers right now because, of course, it's a state of national emergency. They've been doing that since the beginning of the war. So if they aren't able to recruit enough, they conscript them, and then they train them like their regular contract soldiers to that level. Kind of a little odd, though, because it's mixing like the old Soviet military structure of conscription. Well, really, it's not that odd, because when you think about it, everyone did that in the Second World War, so it's not that weird, but in the modern world, it kind of is. But if they don't make it in enlistment numbers, they'll make it in conscription numbers. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And that is it. We are out of poll questions. So with that being said, I said that very dramatically. No, I'm not capping. No cap. But we're moving on to our super chat questions. And up first, we have a $21 donation from BL Parak, longtime channel legend, and thank you very much, BL, for that support. He says, I hope you guys make a lot of money. Lots of work to run the channel. In other news, Europe's Strongest Man contest was today, and Ukraine won first and second. First place was Pavlo Kordiaka. Second place was Alexei Novikov.
Good God. I gotta say, I thank you for the support, BL Parak. And also, I thank you for the support. The thing is, though, is that we're not really aiming to make, like, gobs, you know, like some people are on this war. We're not really
We're trying to pay down these education bills if we're being straight up.
We're really just trying to pay out law school, really. That's
no cap.
Yeah, no cap on God. Like, straight up. That's really the goal. We're not trying to make ourselves, you know, like a killing off of this thing, and that's why we don't run ads or anything. So you know, if you like that, thank you. Like we try and be as honest and humble about this thing as possible. And if y'all support us massively, y'all do. If y'all support us a little bit, y'all do. And if y'all support us just fine, y'all support us just fine. It just is what it is at the end of the day. But it is a decent amount of work to run the channel, but we get a lot in return for it. We get an impressive Lee Spring Army. We get all kinds of cool folks that are a part of the Lee Spring Army. I mean, like, I can just think of loads of them, like Walter A. Lakota, who's still missing. I miss Walter. Hopefully he'll come back.
What happened to Walter? Come back, Walter. Walter, come home.
Walter, now I knew I was wrong. I'd do anything to change your mind. Boom, boom, boom. I need to bring my accordion down here sometime and play that song on accordion. But anyways, moving on from that, that is great to hear that they won first and second place for World Strongman. And also, imagine those guys being on the front lines, Matthew. Like, like a Russian runs into a building hiding from a drone, and it's just dark in there, and he's going, and then you hear, hello. You look like small stun. And then he goes, oh, blah! And he just gets yanked into the darkness, and this guy just rips him apart. But, man, I mean, like,
yes.
Man, that's really impressive. First and second place both came from Ukraine. Now, I don't think the Ukrainians actually do that well in the Olympics, but they are doing well in the strongman competition right there. And, I mean, like, I don't know what they're eating or drinking in Ukraine. They must be drinking, like, some of the rawest milk you can ever get, like the non-pasteurized kind that you could die from. To bulk like that, because that is impressive for them to get first and second. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, BL Proc. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Mike D, who says, as the acting president of the UN Security Council, could Putin defy his arrest warrant by stating he will visit the UN in New York? And would the U.S. have to guarantee his safety while allowing his plane to land here and escort him? And one thing I will say real quick is the UN Security Council and the International Court are two different entities, so I doubt that would have an impact on it.
I have to be honest with you. Yeah, I do think that would not have an impact on it. But at the same time, the United States, knowing the United States, we would definitely take a chance to try and arrest him. So we would most likely try and arrest him if he landed here, because he is landing.
I don't think the U.S. would.
I feel like we would.
Because we're not a party to the I think it's the Rome Statute or whatever. That's the International Court.
Maybe. I don't really know. I feel like we may. Just for the hell of it, just for posterity's sake, we may be a temporary member. But I don't know. I mean, like, you might be right there. Also, Matthew. By the way, I'm just making sure we called them out. Did we call out Alice Houston?
Alice Houston? Yes, we did.
Okay, just making sure.
It was a $50 super chat with no comment.
Yeah, just making sure, because I was sitting there thinking, I was like, wait a minute, I don't think we ever called him out. Call him out. But getting back to this one, I think we would, because why? Because we're sitting here saying he's the leader of a country that has launched an illegal invasion into Ukraine, and then on top of that, he's also sitting there and threatening to nuke the United States as much as he can, as long as he can get away with it. So why in the world would we allow a guy like that to land at an airport in the United States, ride over American roadways to the UN headquarters, and then hang out there? I feel like we would most likely try and arrest him. Not even if we were not a part of the Rome Accords or whatever it was. I feel like we would try and arrest him for the hell of it, and then maybe hand him over to him in some kind of a joint cooperation in between the ICC and the United States. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll, in my opinion, fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one we have is from Hal Rose, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Enforcer to see real drone warriors. Google Seneca Ukraine 93. And, of course, Slav Ukraine.
Seneca? Like Seneca Falls?
Yes.
Yes. Let's see here. Kolodny Yar. This is the Fighting 93rd's website.
They have a website?
Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. The Seneca Special Forces Company deployed as part of the 93rd Brigade, Kolodny Yar.
Oh. They have a .army domain. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And look, they have a T-80 BVM captured from the Russians, now in Ukrainian hands.
Oh, very cool.
Nice. This guy's face, though, like, that's just it. He is like, this dust is in my eyes, man. He's like trying to drive with a little bit of dust coming up. But let's see.
He's holding in there.
Let's see. And then a quote from them. We are confident that our victory will be won through technology and intelligence.
Having
Solid.
both of those does help.
Our main goal is preserving the life and health of servicemen of our brigade through the use of modern warfare technologies. Creating a tactical advantage in a certain area of the front through the use of technological solutions. This almost sounds like a company that creates IT stuff right here. Like, for some reason, it sounds like it. So let's see their little video.
Solidar.
Oh, come on.
Це зараз найскладніші місця, де ведуть оборону наші захисники. Якраз з того напрямку з нами на зв'язку Влад Сорт, командир спецзводу Сенека 93-ї окремої механізованої бригади Холодний Яр. Владе, вітаю.
Вітаю.
Владе, ви командир інноваційного взводу. Можете розказати нашим глядачам, що таке інноваційний взвод?
I would play this, but I don't know if it
What's he saying?
I don't know. The subtitles are in Ukrainian, so sadly we're gonna move off the video because I can't really play it because I can't really understand what they're saying, and I feel like it's pointless about that. But anyways, let's go to the About Platoon section. What about it? About the Seneca Special Forces Company. We're the deployed Seneca Special Forces Company within the 93rd, which is dedicated to technical solutions and innovation. Veterans, professional military, technical specialists, and enthusiasts have united to accelerate Ukraine's victory. The idea to create Seneca belongs to the commander of the Cold Yar Brigade, Colonel Ruslan Shevchuk, Seneca, Roman Rastushny, and Vimy, Vladislav Frenetsky, Stefchuk, with the support of Major Bovkom Yefnin Ivanovich. Saving the lives and health of our brigade soldiers through the use of modern combat technologies. Our goal is to create a tactical advantage in a certain area of the front line through the use of non-standard technological solutions. So we can see some pictures right here, and we see some mortar shells, and we can become part of the platoon. Sweet. But anyways, that is the Seneca Special Forces Company. I gotta say, pretty neat and really cool to know that they're a part of the famous at this point Fighting 93rd Brigade. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Blue Flam 777, who says, why do killer whales never make friends with other species? Do you know why?
No.
They're too awkward. Slav Ukraine. Send the question to the chat.
Just one singular laugh right there. That was a pretty good one. I feel like to be honest with you, it's not a killer of a whale of a joke, but it's a good one. But still, thank you so much for the support, Blue Flam, and we will make sure to grab a live chat. Thank you so much once again, Blue Flam, for being an old guard and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're on into the live chat.
And that live chat question, sponsored by Blue Flam 777, goes to Chewbacca's secret love child, who says, do you think Putin really believes Russia is the best country in the world? And surely he doesn't.
Of course he doesn't. He has to. I mean, like, that's the only logical thing I could think. He has to know it's not the best country in the world. I mean, it's not like it's a hidden secret or anything. I mean, if he believes that, he's absolutely delusional. There's no way. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, what if he does? I'm like, there's really no way that he could. Because the Russians, one, have a very weak GDP. They also have a very weak GDP per capita. So they don't rank anywhere economically. They're very low on that list. The military situation has been known ever since the Chechen wars in the 90s. So that's also very clear as well. There's no way he could have mistook that the Russian army was very badly off. On top of that, there's a massive amount of corruption in Russia, sometimes out of control of the central government. It's not like sanctioned corruption, it is just straight up corruption. And there is really no control over that either. And I mean, like, the country is in squalor. I there's no way I could really imagine that he thinks that Russia is the best country in the world, because it falls behind European countries so greatly in almost every single regard. Not just that, it falls behind the United States by massive bounds. I mean, if you compare everything in the United States to everything the Russians have, the United States will beat the Russians every day of the week in everything, economically, militarily, corruption-wise. I know some people are about to go, oh, there's some corrupt politicians over here. Oh yeah, has your senator sent out a hit squad to kill you because you said that? No? Well, I would say they're not as corrupt as the Russians ones are then, because they will send out a hit squad to kill you if you say something like that.
Facts.
I mean, like, that's straight up facts. Whenever anyone sits there and goes, well, you know, the Russians, they're trying to root out corruption, just remember, if a news reporter in Russia actually pointed out the amount of corruption that there was just on their local level, they will get 2 bullets to the back of the head and be dropped off in the kindergarten playground for everyone to find next morning. That does not happen in the United States. So, you know, our corruption is on a totally different level, on a much better level than the Russians were ever at, even in the modern day, and it's considered really good in the modern day.
Our politicians don't get fleets of G-Wagons all blacked out with tinted windows and sling them through the streets.
Yeah, they just get Secret Service, which are owned by the federal government. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Miranda Nelson, who says, great background on the Stalin infiltrating the church.
And thank you so much for the support and enjoying that background. That's one thing I am able to do pretty well, is spout off history. Matthew knows that because they get tired of it. They get really tired of this crap. But I thank you for enjoying that, because I research things like that a lot. There was actually a interesting little discussion I saw before the stream happened where 2 folks, Mace, it was actually Mace, who is actually in the live chat right now. He was talking with another viewer, and I'm so hard pressed. I'm drawing a blank right now. They were talking about who invented the mass use of, well, who invented the firearm, and then who really brought the firearm to being, like, as an actual weapon of war. And I just tried to spout off the knowledge I knew. It was mostly right. It was very simplified, though, so it was getting things wrong in the aim of simplification, you know, just to make it easy for me to type and quick. But yeah, I mean, like, that's one thing I do. I would really love to make a history channel or a segment of videos that are about history, but you know, I mean, there's a decent amount of people that do that, and it also takes time. You know, because you might get something wrong, and then you know, like, the people who just make it their life to look at the like the Joseon Kingdom of Korea, like, you get something wrong about that, and then you, like, get slandered. Like, you get slandered by the whole Joseon Kingdom community, where they just want to have you taken out to the street and gutted. So with that, I thank you for the support, though, and I thank you so much for enjoying that, because I try my best to get the historical facts right. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a super chat once more from Psyops, who puts in a $10 donation once again. And of course, Psyops, thank you very much for the support. And he says, I bet Matt is too scared to read this today on April Fool's. It's okay, because I understand. I mean, after all, he is eating his dinner, and he loves that Jamaican chicken. So much that he didn't even choke on it. I mean it. I might have modified it slightly, but Psyops, thank you very much for the support.
And I thank you so much for the support, Psyops. We did read it off a little bit,
Yes.
though. And I thank you so much for the support, Psyops, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not, and I say this in all seriousness, if it wasn't for folks like y'all, this channel wouldn't be running. We wouldn't be able to keep the lights on. We wouldn't be able to do anything. And y'all support us and help us to do this as a full-time job, pretty much. And so thank you once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we did read it off. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $10 donation and says, Enforcer Matt's alternative call sign, General Pole's chicken.
That's actually not a bad one. Oh man, dude, you know what they
homeschool much?
Homeschool much? You know what they call a chicken that used to Oh man, I'm having a really hard time. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna say
What
it.
the hell?
I'm really battling whether I should say this or not. You know what they call a chicken that used to work at a gentleman's club?
Oh no, I don't know if I'd say that.
Chicken strips.
I don't get it.
What? Okay.
No, I didn't get it.
Anyways, you know what? I'm just dropping it right there. Then, since you don't get it, we're just dropping it right there, right then and there. We're dropping it like it's hot. But anyways, thank you for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Psyops once again. And I wrote in the box, I said in all caps, super chat is too explicit, so read this instead. I wrote a note to myself. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but it must have been rough. So Psyops said, alternatively, if you decide not to read the super chat, please look up the nice town called Asbest in Russia. I hear it has a nice clean air.
And how do you type that in?
ASBEST.
There's literally an asbestos Canada. We're gonna have to go look at that in a second. But let's go to. Ooh, oh, it's this town. It's the toxic town. You know, the one that everyone's dying in. I think, or that's like the other one. Let's look at
the whole. That's Russia in general.
Oh, bled. It look like Detroit, but much worse, bled. It's beast.
People are really
Look at that
writing.
old Soviet sign.
Look at that old Soviet sign. They live life so much better than the West. Look at it. It's so nice. Wow. Very nice.
Let's try and actually look at the town. They actually have like a new little store right there. I give them that. But the rest of the town is not that new.
Look at that old Soviet overgrowth.
Look at that old Soviet park that's being poorly maintained. Wow, the Soviet Union was really incredible. I'm gonna LARP about them for the rest of my life and make a career on it. And then I get kicked out and then I have to go to South America or something. But anyways, not a bad looking town. It's horrible looking. It's terrible.
My goodness, that is a hell of a hole.
Man, I got to tell you, that's a pretty tough one right there. It's we're not gonna say that. Someone said the hole. This is the rabbit hole right here. This is wait a minute, hang on. That is literally the rabbit hole right there. That is it. You're looking at it on a picture from 2017. That is the original rabbit hole.
You see that old Soviet excavator down there in the bottom?
Old Soviet excavator. They can't get it out of there because it's so deep in.
They need that for the invasion.
Yes, they do. They actually probably stripped the mine of all of its equipment. But man, this town is not that good looking like that. Like, you know, I'm not trying to find the best ones in town. I'm trying to find what looks average. Like this, and this, and this, and not the modern store. They're showing that one again. They're trying to show it off. And this looks like hell. It really does. And so with that, I hope we addressed that part fairly well. And now we have to go look at Asbestos Canada, because I've never heard of a town being called Asbestos Canada. There we go. So...
Oh, yes. It's asbestos. It looks like it has some.
Oh, yes. The giant pit in the middle of the city must have some. Let's take a look at asbestos here. So we got some gnomes. We also have a Toraktor. That thing was still a tank at some point in its life. We also have the houses. And we have the building. That's actually a modern...
Uh-oh, that lab looks sketchy.
Uh-oh, it's that biolab that the Russians were talking about. Oh, no. Let's see. A gondola? Okay, cool. Not really a lot of asbestos stuff in here. Really a lot of gnomes. Oh, look, they have one of those giant trucks, though.
Wow.
Dang, that thing's big.
$4.93 to be precise.
Man, I mean, that's pretty hefty, man. But let's see here. I think that's like part of a pit. I don't know. Some old cars.
Wait a minute, go back. Go back to that pit.
It's like trash in the pit.
I guess Jeffrey owned the place.
I guess so, Matthew. And I guess we'll have to get to the valid sources of the garbage.
All right.
Man,
That really makes no
you're
sense.
picking up on nothing. Like the sources of the garbage, but the town is called Valdi Sources. So we say Valdi Sources of the garbage.
I don't know about that one, man. I don't know if that
Oh,
works.
man. Well, everyone in the live chat got the chicken strips joke. Everyone got it. Oh man, you're making me feel like an idiot tonight with these jokes. Live chat will back me up though. Live chat's always got me. Get me up. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for the support. And I hope you enjoyed us looking at the town of Asbet.
All right, and with that being said, we're on to the next one, which goes to Louis Salmeron, who puts in a 10 and says, "Thanks for being my source of news on how Ukraine is defending itself against the invading Russians."
And thank you so much for supporting this channel, so that way we can continue to be a source of news for everyone who's looking for news on the war in Ukraine on a daily basis. And I got to thank you so much for that. And I thank you for the high praise as well. We try to be, and I'm glad that we are for so many people. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And look, I knew it didn't make sense. Everybody's saying, nope, it didn't make any sense.
Aw, man.
And over my head, it didn't work.
Dag nabbit. It looks like that one did fall flat. I thought it wouldn't, but it did. And so with that,
it fell a little flat.
Yeah, it fell a little flat. Kind of like that Coke when you open up the bottle of a Coke and then it just goes flat overnight and it tastes like sugar water. Like
you said, occasionally I do get some things wrong, and then he said, yes.
Oh man, that was a very interesting night, that show. That 1 year anniversary.
We need to be in
show.
front of the camera again, and Forrester, you need to give us a date that we're going to be back on camera.
I don't know. I really don't know. Because
I want to be back on camera, man.
Dang, man, what you got an objective or something? You gotta get back on the nightly news or something? You're on it every night. But anyways, we'll come up with a date. We'll come up with something. I was gonna say this upcoming Saturday, but it's literally Saturday, so it's kind of a little late for that. But with that, we are on to, and it also can't be tomorrow because I've got to get to writing up an outline for a massive paper. I don't know if that professor's watching or not, but yeah, that's tomorrow. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next.
All right. And, well, I won't say that since your professor might be watching, but up next we have a $10 super chat from Psyops. Once again, he says, yeah. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Let's see. Okay, I think this one's fine. I think it is fine, actually. He says, yeah, so, Matt, we need to talk. I love you, but this is for your singing fun. It's bad. Not like a reasonable bad, but I'd rather listen to now that part is bad. That part is very bad. We cannot read that part. But Psyops, we're going to bring you on because we're going to have you sing a few songs and covers, and we're going to put you through your paces and let's see how good you do. But Enforcer, what say you?
All I got to say is, if you don't think I'm good at singing, you just got to hear this. I don't know what to do. You know that little yodeling kid in the Walmart?
Oh yeah! Oh man. Dang, man, that was your imitation of that.
Yeah,
kid?
I know, and it sounded even worse. You're like, everyone imagine, how can it get worse? It did. I did it. But still. Oh man, I remember when that poor kid was making the rounds, and then he got put on the Ellen Show, and he just practically died after that. If you went on the Ellen Show, it was a death sentence. Anyone could go on the Ellen Show. Anything could happen on the Ellen Show. It was dead by next week. Like the Ellen Show had like massive impact on killing off memes and everything else. I don't know what it was with that show, but it killed them. So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And yeah, terrible singing for sure. I would agree with that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
I have people shrieking for help in the comments. Dear Lord.
Dude, they're yelling, kill me. I'm in constant pain. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's why singing never happens here. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from SuperBunker9000, a proud member of the NAFO Alliance. I don't know if it's called an alliance, actually, now I said that. I think it's just NAFO. But SuperBunker9000 says, speaking of roasting Putin, I wonder if he would squeal like a pig like that, that he's roasted like that while roasted.
What? Wait, reread that.
I think I might have doubled that in my mind for some reason. Let's see.
What happened? Reread the line.
Speaking of roasting Putin, I wonder if he would squeal like a pig that he is while roasted.
I wonder if he'll squeal like a pig he is while roasted. I think that's how that was supposed to be read off, because now that makes sense to me. I feel like he would most likely yipe like a dog instead. You know, like you put him over the fire, he goes,
Yipe,
he would, most likely something like that. So maybe he would, but I feel like he's most likely going to yipe like a dog. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. Thank you for the support, Superbunker 9000. And with that, we are on to the next one. And I actually saw someone, Matthew, say, anyone listen to Something Jones? And no.
Ooh.
But all I gotta say is, they're lying to you. The media, they're lying to you. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Vance Hicks, who says, Enforcer, I don't really have a handle on the size of the Russian economy. If they blow themselves up economically, will the rest of the world feel it?
Let's see. Well, good question. Let me type that in. Economy list by GDP. Economy ranking by GDP. Let me go find a list.
You could ask ChatGPT and it would put it in a list for you.
Can I just type that in, like right here, right now?
Yeah. Well, do it on a different screen. Go to ChatGPT and log in, and
I don't have a login
so that way you
for
don't expose.
ChatGPT.
Oh man, you need to get that. Where have you been? You know that. Well,
I listen
here, but that's handy for work.
What the hell are these ads? What are the ads? Why in the world do these shoddy websites always pull up these same ads? Anyways, here are the top economies in the world, at least according to 2017 GDP figures. As you can see, Russia is number 11. It's almost directly in par with the economy of South Korea or Canada. So you can see right there, the economy of the Russians is fairly small, especially small for the kind of population they have, around like 115 million people. So in that sense, they're not doing well. If the Russian economy collapsed, they've pretty much been divided from the rest of the world's economy at this point, in most regards. So if they did collapse, there would almost be no effect to anyone except for people who are strongly economically tied to the Russians, which would probably just be the North Koreans and maybe the Chinese a little bit. So really no one would be affected if they did collapse. And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. And if you're ever wondering, most Paul's movie scenes, kind of scared of what's below the picture there. I feel like they cropped that one. I may not be.
Wait a minute. What's that say below? It says, I must have rewound this scene 1,000 times in my youth.
What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean?
Wait, the one on the right says, both captains share best picks. Try not to capsize while looking at the boat picks.
And what the hell is this? Follow sports? That's like, who's putting this up in groovy history? How the hell is this history? This is not history.
Oh, they're going to show you some history, all right.
Boy, I can tell you this: my boat might be capsizing, but I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go further with that. We're gonna leave that one right there. But with that,
man, the best one is those like pictures. They'll show you like some like drugs or something on the table, and then they'll say, "Doctors hate this one trick. Click now to see."
Police hate him. See how this tweaker was able to get $10,000 of copper with one simple trick, and it shows like a crowbar or something like that. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Thank you so much for the support. And, oh, buddy, we're capsizing this boat. Call it the Moskva, because those pictures are making this boat capsize. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Superbunker 9000 once again, who says, Putin roasting on an open fire, Prigozhin nipping on his nose.
What? He's nipping on the nose? Ew.
Chomping on it.
Chomping on it. He eating it. He calling that thing a $5 fill-up because he getting it. he eating that thing. But still. Oh, that came out wrong. I just realized that. But anyways, I thank you for the support. And we're not going to sing anymore. I've decided I'm never singing again. But with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does.
Serious that time.
Yeah, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jayburn, who puts in a $10 donation, but without a comment. But Jayburn, thank you very much for continually supporting this channel and keeping us running, and we do appreciate it very much. And with that being said, we're on to the next one, which goes to Trust Tech, who puts in a $10 donation and says turret toss with a com ending with a dot. In between goes to your Twitter page now. YouTube won't let me post that actual link.
Well, thank you for the support. The reason why YouTube doesn't allow links to be posted is because folks can get scammed through links. Just in case you're wondering, like, why in the hell is it doing that? It's just a general precaution that YouTube takes across the entire platform. Because there's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of people who sit there, like in the comment section, y'all may notice, like, viewers y'all have never heard or seen of before, supposedly in the comment section going, I invested in something. I invested in squid farts, and I've got to tell you, it's been a great investment. And then there'll be like 30 additional comments tacked to that one and 40 likes going, yes, I also invested in squid farts, and now I live in a mansion in New York City or something like that. So that's why the links aren't allowed. But anyways, let's see, turrettoss.com is what he's saying for us to pull up.
I'm not really sure. You could try that on a separate page.
Yeah, let me try that on a separate page.
Now, Suzanne Foraseppi said, Enforcer Channel should get a call-in phone number for the live program, please. You know, that is something that would be cool, but also at the same time, like, for example, with the Moscow Mike situation, we tried to vet him, and he came on, and then he pulled a fast one on us pretty badly. So badly, it's gone down in channel history. So I can only imagine what would happen if we brought him, like, random people on phone calls, how that would go. Also, if you've ever watched the C-SPAN, like, call-in moments, they've had some real doozies on there, too.
I was about to actually list that. I was about to sit there. I was about to sit there and start talking about the people who get on C-SPAN and go,
Why, yes, I just like to call in and say that the radical Islamic terrorists are going to kill the country.
they're going to kill you too. And then they hang up on real quick and go, hey, I'm sorry, everyone, but we do not tolerate that here on C-SPAN. And, and then they have to go through that. I would be scared as hell. I got to be honest with you. I'd be scared as hell as having one of those call-in things because, someone calls in and they drop like the N-word once and we're gone for good. And we would have had no control over that. No matter how much we vet them, they could have acted completely normal up till that point just to do that thing and tank us. So it's a cool idea, I would admit, but I would be very scared of implementing something like that for that reason. And if we did do something like that, call-ins would have to be like pre-scheduled and pre-recorded before the show even ran, so that way we made sure that nothing was being said that would get us into massive trouble. So with that, I thank you for the support. Sadly, I could not find that link when I pulled it up. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you for supporting this channel, and I will try and find the link after the stream.
All right. And with that said, we have a $10 super chat from Mace, who says, I appreciate the shout out. I'm sad to see the Discord go. I love the stream and enjoy the news you provide to us, and I pray that the war in Ukraine ends soon with a massive Ukrainian victory. Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine. And I thank you for the support, Mason. Yeah, it's sad to see the Discord go, but really, to be honest, it is a little bit of a relief to us because there has been the Discord on our end has never been good. It's been a constant source of stress. It's been, there's always been something going on in there, and now we've seen something a little interesting that a viewer said something to one of the former moderators from kind of connected to the schism a little bit, and so instead of just telling us about it, they left the server, just outright left the server, then told us about it, and now they are also trying to, I think, from what we can tell, spread a story that we're now allowing people to sexually harass folks on the server. So now that's a new thing, and if we let that server go on, even with moderators, that kind of stuff would continue, and it would be a constant stress, it'd be a constant burden. Even if that wasn't the case, and we actually ended up banning that person, I think, like an hour after that. Once we got off.
Yeah, stream. they were banned shortly afterward. After I did some more investigating.
Yeah, so that was what it was. But anyways, I thank you for the support, Mace. I'm glad you understand. I hope everyone understands that it is a part of the Discord, why it will be closed down. And since we are closing it down, and it's, a lot of y'all did enjoy it, I will make sure to get on the Discord in a call for a little bit after the stream before we actually shut it down, just to have a little bit of a farewell thing for it. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, if you want to stay connected with the LSA outside the stream and the chat, feel free to join our Twitter, because there is a comment section below every post, And I do read all of them, although most of the time I can't respond to all of them because it's very cumbersome to do. So many comments coming in. But feel free to join our Twitter. We're up to 4,500 and something followers. So it's growing very fast. In fact, it's growing much faster than Discord ever did. And also, it's really fun for me to do also on the side as well.
Peter, the Twitter has 4,556 followers.
Yes.
That didn't really work well. We'll never do that again in that format. But anyway, so that we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from SuperBunker9000 once again, who says, I donate to the stream because I can and want to and enjoy the stream. This is the best stream on YouTube as far as I'm concerned. Love LSA and enforcers in a manly way, LOL.
In a manly way. I eat nails. But still, thank you for the support. I thank you so much for enjoying this channel and supporting us. And that's one thing we always try and make clear. And we're the only channel that does it this way on YouTube. We make no money running this channel at all. The only way we make money to support ourselves is if viewers decide to support us. And then y'all decide how much we make because y'all decide how much y'all send in. I mean, there's no one out there, Matthew. It's not like Matthew's sitting there behind every single super chatter, grabbing their hand when they're like typing in the number and going, no, you put in a 20 and you put in a 5. Like no one's doing that. Y'all decide to do that completely on your own. So if we get supported or not, that's entirely up to y'all. If we run this thing with no ads and nothing on it. And thank you so much for the support. And I thank you so much for supporting us. Because folks like y'all who decide that y'all find this channel worthwhile supporting keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Psyops once again, who says, just no chat. I'm never going to give you up. Never going to... Oh, man, come on.
He rickrolled you! Oh, my God, man, he rickrolled you!
My brain was telling me that before I read it off, but for some reason I read it anyway and it didn't register until later.
You got rickrolled live. You got rickrolled live on air.
Why is that a bad thing, though? I've never understood that.
I don't know why, but it is a bad thing. It's the rules of the internet that it is a bad thing. On the 402nd day, 2 hours, 47 minutes in, Matthew got rickrolled. This is the first time either one of us have been rickrolled. I can't believe it. It took that long to finally get rickrolled. I cannot believe that, but good job. Good job, though. Thank you for the support. You actually got him. That's hilarious. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And that was such a reaction. And everyone's going wild in the live chat, too, right now.
Oh man.
I wonder if I can pull up the you know the rules and so do I say goodbye thing, you know? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh,
no.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I wonder.
Suka bliat.
Yeah, but let's see here. You know the rules. And so do I say goodbye.
We're going to get a copyright strike for that.
No, we're not. No, we're not. It's a 6 seconds long. Here we go.
Oh, no. We're going to get copyright for this bad.
No, we're not.
And he goes after people. Rick Astley does not tolerate that mess.
No, it's just a meme. It's 5 seconds. It's literally a meme.
Oh, there he is.
All right.
You know the rules, and so do I.
What the hell?
I mean, that's the meme.
Damn.
But anyways, now that you've been rickrolled, Matthew, you know the rules, and so do I. Say goodbye.
Put that shotgun down, dang it. What's that thing always just sitting by your side for?
I don't know. I really don't know. It should be moved at this point. But anyways, with that, thank you for the support. You rickrolled him. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, question from the chat, please. And of course, we will get a question from the chat. And thank you very much for your support. Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. And the question goes to Wim Jong, who says, I suspect that once Russia is beaten, China will pounce and take Russia's territory. And what do you think?
I don't think China will pounce and take Russia's territory because Russia will still be a nuclear power, and also the Chinese have to put in a decent amount of cost, time, and effort to administrate all of that territory and then extract the resources, when they could just let the Russians foot that bill and then buy the resources at an incredibly cheap price. It would more so be economically beneficial for the Chinese to not do that than to do it. So that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. Well, the live chat fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Flash1, who puts in a $7 donation and says, do you think with Ukraine getting Western tanks and weapons, Bradleys, etc., it will become a turkey shoot? LSA, love Ukraine.
I think it will most likely become a turkey shoot in some regards, but in others it will not. Like, for example, a 25mm gun on the Bradley is good, but it's good at closer ranges. So it won't just be able to fire off that little chain gun and then just wipe out a whole platoon of tanks. It won't be able to do that. It will be able to take them out with the toes, though. But then that's also dependent on a whole bunch of factors and its range and if it was ever seen, which it probably wouldn't be. But I feel like it will most likely create a turkey shoot in most situations, especially on a tank-on-tank scenario or a tank-on-infantry scenario. Those tanks will be rolling over Russian infantry like there's no tomorrow, and the Russians really won't be able to stop those tanks in what they're doing. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, allowing us to answer that question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Putin while hanging in the middle of the Kremlin once again. He says, no singing, please. Some of us are still traumatized from the face reveal a few months ago. Damn. Now he's not want to go back on camera.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I sat there and got on the screen and they said, oh my god, it's the Humane Society. Oh man, I'm telling you, it's terrible. Terrible. Oh man, it's awful.
And then people are going to be going, please, for the love of God, stop. But oh man, I don't know if you're serious with that or not, man, but I thank you for the support.
No, he's joking. He put a smiley face behind it.
I know, I'm just kidding with him, but I thank you for the support. I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And yes, we're pretty adamant on not really singing, but whenever anyone asks, we gotta try, even if it runs off viewers. But with that, thank you once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, should the USA put nukes into Poland to offset Russia's nukes in Belarus?
I think we do have nukes in Poland. Let me check that though. Does the US have nukes in Poland? Let's just find out. US nukes in Poland are a truly bad idea. Relocating nuclear weapons based in Germany to Poland. So we do have nuclear weapons in Germany, but we do not have nuclear weapons in Poland. So Poland actually asked for U.S. nuclear weapons to be based in its territory, but it appears that that's never happened. So I would say,
how do you go about asking for that? Have some nukes.
Dude, they do what Lukashenko did with asking for some control of the nukes. They sit there and poke their fingers together and say, is for me, and then they wait for the United States to move the nukes that way. But
and then we said, oh, look, a bot.
Wait, where
said that?
Sarosil, Saputina. Oh, he's dead. Oh, he's dead.
Get out of here, man.
He just got bombarded, and he's in the internet. He's gone. He's been massacred. Someone quick. Age restrict this thing for YouTube because that was brutal. But anyways. Moving on from that and answering that question, don't really see that much of a problem with it, considering we have nuclear weapons in Germany. It's not really that much of a move to take them from Germany to Poland. So I would say there really shouldn't be any problem to it, and we should do that. Because if they're willing, if they're wanting to tee it up then. Tee it up. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope we answered that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, just waiting for one guy in a suit of steel armor with a minigun to march into enemy fire and wipe out the Russian front line while the Ukraine anthem plays.
Dang, man, what do you think this is? Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3?
Oh, he got that mech suit.
Dude, he's got that final mission where what was his name? Price goes into the hotel to get Makarov or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know that one where he's in that suit.
Odin and all that stuff?
No. Modern Warfare 3 is the one where, whatchamacallit, Makarov is trying to, kill the world or something, and, Soap gets blown out of that church tower, and then he says, Yuri knows Makarov. And then you get kicked down the stairs and all that crap. It's that one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you don't remember it? That was your favorite game like 12 years ago, Matthew. How the hell do you not remember what happened 12 years ago? Come on, Matthew. Like, I'm just playing with you.
Man, I hadn't played COD in like 6 or 7 years.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've never played a COD. I've never seen a COD. Hell, I've never even seen
Man.
them in the store, really. I mean, like, what kind of fish is that?
Have you ever heard of those carp though?
Dude,
Man, we
those-
gotta kill those carp.
Man, those carp be wild, man. They be
Yeah.
crazy.
You remember that Andy Griffith episode when they were talking about the carp and they thought they were talking about people and they said, "I'm gonna kill those carp, man. I hate those carp."
Wait a minute, what?
You remember that?
No, I don't.
He was in there with Floyd the barber, and he was saying, "Oh, carp! Oh, you're gonna kill carp."
I don't remember that at all. Actually, I don't remember that. But you
I
remember?
gotta go back and watch.
You remember when Opie got punched in the face?
Yeah,
You
they called
remember
him
that?
Dopey.
Yeah, they called him Dopey and then punched him in the face. But yeah, the Andy Griffith Show wasn't that bad. Funnily enough, Ron Howard went on to be a great director. Funnily enough, who was the kid who was the guy who played Opie. But anyways, what the hell was the question at this point? I don't even know what the question was. How the hell did we
It was
get
the minigun with the armor.
Oh
in
yeah,
the
yeah,
barrel.
yeah. So that would be cool. I don't think that would ever happen, but that would be super cool if it did. And I think it would happen most likely in an urban area because that'd be the best place to pull it off if it happened. I'm not saying it will happen though, but if it did happen, it would happen in the city. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat once more from Superbunker 9000, who says, "I'd enjoy watching Putin roast over fire, but to eat him, that's a hard pass. Slav Ukraine and chat question, please."
I mean, to eat someone, who the hell do these people think we are? Do they think we're Dutch or something? We don't eat, we don't eat leaders of countries around here. We hang them. But still, thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. I'd also have to take a hard pass on eating Putin. I'd rather send him to Nuremberg to then have him hung. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the live chat question that was asked for goes to Alexandria T, who says, "What is the chance that North Korea would ship Russia some nuclear?"
Very low. Very, very low. Nuclear weapons are very hard for North Korea to produce. So much more difficult for them to produce than anyone else because they don't actually have a natural source of radioactive material to mine out of the ground in North Korea. What they do to create their radioactive material is that they burn extremely large amounts of coal and then they take the uranium, because there's actually trace amounts of uranium in coal, and then they enrich and refine the uranium from that coal into weapons grade uranium. That's how they make it. So it's actually a very laborious and very long process for them to produce a nuclear weapon. And so they probably wouldn't send one to Russia because it would be way easier for the Russians to produce one and send it to North Korea than it would be for the North Koreans to send one to the Russians. And anyways, 1 or 2 nukes isn't going to help Russia out at all because they have thousands of them. And even if thousands of those don't work, they still have thousands of them. And so, 1 or 2 of them isn't really going to be changing much of anything. But with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shot to Firejack 007, puts in a 5, as well as Junebug72 puts in a 4. We also have a 2 from Dupper Bob and a 2 from CA Lags. And Dupper Bob says, "Slav Ukraine." And then CA Lags says, "I've been sick, but I'm back. LSA, Slav Ukraine."
And CA Lags is back. We've gotten so many people coming back over these past few days, and I say welcome back to each and every one of y'all. And thank you for the support, and of course, to Dupper Bob, like always, every single night, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Mank2 Wheeler, who puts in a $2 donation and says, I'd eat Putin raw if that meant he'd finally be gone.
Damn, he must be from the Netherlands. Dude.
What's that mean?
Johan de Witt. We pulled him up before. Johan de Witt, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who was dragged out to the streets, and then his liver was eaten.
Well, there must have been Liver King back in the day.
You see, there they are up there. There's the de Witt brothers up there in the painting, and we can see that all of the Dutch folks are enjoying the daily festivities. We can see these guys up here. We got shooters on the roof. We got shooters on the roof. But anyways, getting past it. Oh my god, look, dude, they actually had, like, you know, if this was the modern day, dude, someone would whip out a smartphone in this crowd, take a picture of this guy up here and go, they've got snipers on the rooftops, you know, or something like that. But anyways, moving on from that, that guy must be Dutch. Because to eat a leader of a country, you have to be Dutch. I think they're the only people who cannibalized their prime minister at any point in history that I can think of. So yeah, he must be Dutch. But, you know, if you'd eat him raw, go for it, man. I mean, you know, put some salt on there or something, you know, at least be civil about it. But yeah, go for it. So with that, thank you for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, big shout out to Commander Prankster, who puts in a $10 super chat and says for coffee or whatever. Yeah.
And for coffee and for whatever. I don't know how to pronounce that in Ukrainian, actually. But still, thank you for the support, Commander Prankster. And thank you for helping this channel keep on running and helping us to drink coffee. So that way we can keep the stream rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Chris Webb, who says something in Ukrainian. And I believe it says, if I know my Ukrainian well, coffee fund and thanks for the news.
And thank you for the coffee. We're greatly appreciative. And thank you so much for the support as well. We enjoy that people do like this channel. And that is a huge driving motivation here to keep this thing rolling. And so thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to CA Lags, who puts in a $2 donation and says, did you hear that France joined AUKUS?
France joined a UK-US.
That submarine alliance, AUKUS.
Oh, yeah, of course I know AUKUS. Yeah, I actually don't. I don't really know a lot about AUKUS.
That's a big deal, man. That's that submarine deal we've got going with Australia that China's freaking out about.
Oh, that thing. I'm sorry, man, but honestly, I'm in the dark about that one thing. Like, I can't
believe it.
Know a good deal about history and current events. That's one thing that I've actually not heard about before. But still, with that, really interesting here. And I thank you for the support and sharing that with me. It has more significance to Matthew than to me, but I'll make sure to look into it after the stream and find out what it means. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Xi would give up his honey if it meant he could do away with that whole situation. But anyway.
Honey.
Yes. But with that being said, we're out of super chat questions. So, of course, we are moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Tonight, we did have a Morse code, and it's solved by JP's RCs, C-Fay, Mark Hodges, Rumpelstiltskin, Cliff Simonson, Dark Warrior 137, and Paul Schultz. They said tonight's Morse message. Did you know that 1 in every 1 Russian soldier in Ukraine will be part of a turret toss?
That's the sound of money. And y'all are absolutely correct. That is, in fact, the Morse code message for the night. 1 in every 1 Russian in Ukraine has been a part of a turret toss in one form or another. Some of them, the astronauts inside of the turret, boldly going where no man has ever gone before. And also, the Star Trek attorneys are firing up the jet right now and flying over there because I said that. And also, yeah, or they watch it. They watch it from the sidelines. They're like the ground control crew at SpaceX. But anyways, thank you so much once again, everyone, for deciphering that Morse code message. It is the 402nd day of this war, and y'all are still out there, fresh at it, deciphering the Morse. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope we address that fairly well.
And Lanny said, Enforcer Matt tells us about the submarines. All I know is it's a big deal. The submarines are very large, they're very impressive, and they have nukes. So there you go.
They're the biggest submarines. Everyone's been saying, rumors around, that's a big submarine. And I gotta tell you, it's not the one in my pants. Oh, no, that's it. My hands may be small, but what's in what the submarine isn't. I'm telling you that. It's huge. Believe me.
But anyways. Whoa. Oh, notorious GRG. Anyways, with that, y'all did get the Morse code message correct. And we are on to the next one, which funnily enough is not a live chat. It's another super chat.
And this one, of course, goes to Notorious GRG, who puts in a $10 donation and says, I have been wanting to do this for a while when y'all talk about the cost of truck in the U.S. I like how they refer to a truck like it's a commodity. But the cost of truck in the U.S. and the reason it's hard to find small economical trucks, look up the chicken tax. I thought he was about to say the gas guzzler tax.
The chicken tax is a tariff on 25% on light truck imports. The chicken tax was originally imposed in 1963 in retaliation for European tariffs on American chicken. The average U.S. tariff rate on industrial imports is now 2%. But did we really import a lot of trucks from overseas? Because I feel like the pickup truck is kind of like a almost American thing. Well, really a North American thing, only existing in Canada and the United States. But let's look at some extra details. We've got Mr. Johnson here.
Man,
oh no.
Jumbo.
Oh no. Watch out. He's got jumbo around, but it ain't jumbo shrimp, I'm telling you that. But anyways, let's see, on the importation of US chicken. Now because of that importation like blockage, they don't really buy US chicken, so they're really freaked out when they hear we bathe our chicken in chlorine, which, you know, all of the chicken in the US is like treated with a chlorine like emulsion. So I don't really understand like what the big deal is. I mean, like, hell, look at Americans. We're perfectly healthy. I don't know why in the world they wouldn't want to eat the chicken. But anyways.
I love chlorine with my chicken.
Man, I freaking love chlorine. It starts drinking chlorine water from the pool. But anyways, let's see here. Here is one of the chicken farms. Wow.
Goodness.
I gotta tell you, it always looks bizarre when you look at these chicken farms. It looks like something dystopian. Really, I mean, you know, being honest. And also you can see that they are stressed out and they're plucking each other's feathers off. But anyways, moving on from that, that's the way we get chicken. Because if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be enough chicken. And chicken would be very expensive. Actually, chicken is a really cheap thing, really because of World War II and the aftermath of it. But that's a whole story for a whole other time. That's really interesting.
It's getting kind of expensive now, actually.
Yeah, it's getting kind of expensive. And that's because the demand is actually climbing enough that the unbelievable, limitless supply of chicken we have is actually not enough anymore. So the price is climbing a little bit. Really, it also has to do with a whole bunch of other things, but it's also because there are a lot of people wanting chicken. Chicken has become really common and really popular. Anyways, moving on from that, that is very interesting to hear that they did impose a import tax. Ford, which is one of the main beneficiaries of the tax, also evaded it by manufacturing first generation. Oh, so wait a minute. It was American companies with factories overseas. Even all the way back then, in the 60s, U.S. companies had factories overseas in other countries producing things. And so they would transport the small trucks back to the United States, but for the American companies to do that, they would have to pay a massive import tariff on those trucks. So then they just started producing larger sized trucks. And that's why we're at where we're at today. I didn't even know that. That is really, you've actually taught me something, Notorious GRG, tonight that I did not know about why trucks got that big. I honestly feel like they should start going back down in size, because I can tell you this, you know, the marketing about these trucks, and I'm saying this is a general thing, so if you're not the norm here to this rule and you're like an exception to it, don't take this as like an attack against you. But the thing is, these trucks are marketed as like the man's man thing. You get a big truck, you're a big man. And then these people never use them for what pickup trucks really are supposed to be used for. They're really just like normal cars, but they're massive trucks. You know, it's like a pickup truck is to get things done. You know, that's why it's a pickup truck. You put stuff in the actual trunk of the truck, you know, or the bed of the truck. You put stuff back there. A lot of the people I see that own the massive trucks, they never really do. The folks that actually use trucks, they're always using like the smaller ones, like the old Chevy Silverados that always have the trailer hitch that pops off and never comes back on. It never reattaches.
Now you mean the tailgate handle?
Yeah, the tailgate handle or the hitch.
I got blamed for that when I was a child. We used to have an old, like, I forgot the year model, like 1995 Silverado or something like that. And I went outside to go pull that handle. It went clunk. And it broke like all of them do, and I got yelled at and blamed for that for like a year.
Oh man, the fun times are growing up. But yeah, those are the actual trucks that you see getting used. I mean, like, Matthew, I think you can attest to that rule. I have never seen the massive oversized trucks ever being used as a pickup truck. They're almost always used as some kind of an SUV or a car.
Actually, no, I've seen them used quite often as pickup trucks. Most of the time, you'll see them hauling like gooseneck trailers or fifth wheel like hauler like things like RV attachment. I don't know what they're really called. And then you'll see some hauling really big like trailers, like for race car hauling and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, how many, like, but like everyone who owns those trucks, though, they're not going out there and like hooking up a massive trailer to these things. I mean, like, we just see a lot of them. Like yesterday, when we went to a gun store together to go do something, we saw a massive truck. This thing took up like half the parking lot. It was so big. It was like a Ram Power Wagon, I think. It was literally a Ram.
That was a
Power
Ram
Wagon.
TRX. It was that Hellcat Ram.
The thing was so big we couldn't even get out of the parking lot because it parked in a parking spot. It took it up. Like trucks like that, it's like, why the hell even use them? They're so big, it's like driving around a bus. I mean, like, it's almost impractical at that point. You know, and Final Countdown said it's all a status symbol. I feel like it is, and I feel like that's what a lot of cars are becoming these days. Like, things are just getting, in my opinion, like, you know, and this is just an opinion thing and not a political thing. Things in the consumer world are getting way too revolving around making something your lifestyle. Like, just because I buy something doesn't mean I want that to be my lifestyle, okay? Like, if I buy a polo shirt or something, that does not mean I'm into polo, and that does not mean I have to become a jock a-hole. Like, that does not mean that. You know, I can just buy a polo because I like a polo. You know, I can buy guns because I just think guns are neat. I don't have to go and, like, you know, have everything else attached to it to make guns my lifestyle. It's just the thing I buy and I like. You know, it's like,
I don't know. I mean, every time I've seen a polo, like, I have the sudden urge to like go stand out on the green in a golf course holding those expensive clubs and smoking a cigar. And
oh, you cut out there. Hang on. You there? Uh-oh.
Hello?
Hello? You cut out for a second there.
My spreadsheet's going bonkers right now. I think we're having some lag.
No, I think that's just on your end because YouTube has said nothing about lag. So I think it may have just
maybe
been
it's just me.
Yeah, it may have just been a you thing. But I've got to tell y'all, the one thing that I get tired of in the modern world is that every time you buy a product, you almost have to like subscribe to this kind of personality that this company is going to try and force you into. And people actually live with that now. You know, you can't buy anything or do anything without being associated with some kind of a lifestyle or something. When I buy stuff,
Guns are the biggest ones.
Say what?
Guns are the biggest ones.
Oh,
People
yeah.
that buy guns, like a lot of them start like getting into this like mindset of like, I got to be tactical.
Yeah, oh man, no. I was actually hanging out with someone today, and I don't know if they're watching the channel tonight. I was actually talking about that. They were complaining about the kind of people that come into their store like that. And hell, they run a gun store, and I'm like, it's just ridiculous. Whenever you buy something, that doesn't mean it's your lifestyle now. You just happen to own something like that. You know, be creative enough to have your own kind of lifestyle that doesn't revolve around a consumer good or a product or something. That's just kind of lame. But anyways, that's enough ranting on my end. You know, that's just my thing. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope we addressed that fairly well.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Santiago Flores, who says, Enforcer, who really runs the United Nations? It sounds like the League of Nations.
That's a pretty good one, actually. The United Nations is actually run by supposedly all the countries in the world, but that's BS. It's really just run by the big players in the UN. I'm trying to think of what it is. I think it is the UN Security Council. It's really just run by those guys. The rest of them are all there for the ride and really don't get a lot of say. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, that is what it is. I guess in a way, that's the best way to explain it. So with that, I hope we answered that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Anani Mouse, who says, why not sanction the Russian ambassador to the UN?
The Russian ambassador to the UN. Usually you don't want to go after political envoys. Usually that's something you try and respect and try and avoid. Like, hell, I think an American ambassador to the UK actually ran over someone and killed them at some point, and instead of even being arrested by the British, they were just sent back to America. You know, you usually
I think they actually ended up getting in trouble.
Oh, they did?
I think so. It wasn't, they didn't get punished like going to jail or anything, but they got, you know, a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, I think they did, but they still got sent back with really no real repercussions. I think they're driving. I think what you're talking about is that their driving license was revoked in the UK, and that doesn't even really.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was something really lame for running someone over and killing him. But usually you don't go after political envoys, so you could sanction them. There's nothing saying you can't, but it's kind of like an unwritten rule that you usually don't sanction political envoys, ambassadors, and things like that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, someone said, you talk a lot of crap on try and take Alaska. LOL. You talk a lot of crap on trucks, but not different from to someone driving a Hellcat that has 1,000 horsepower. I mean, like that's another thing too. I mean, I'm talking about trucks, but I'm not one of those people to sit there and ask why the hell should you have something just because it's there. I mean, like if it's there and you want it, you should be able to get it. But when you always associate something with a personality, like let's not kid ourselves. That Mustang drivers out there are known as the most dangerous and deadly drivers in America. I mean, it's for some reason the personality that they sell you with on a Mustang just brings forward the most reckless drivers. And like Dodge Hellcats. I mean, like that's like someone who like really wants to get into like the hot shot world. I don't know. I mean, like, it's kind of a thing though. Like, it would be cool if the Dodge Hellcat was just a Dodge Hellcat. It's like, oh, neat, that thing's just bristling with horsepower, really cool. But there's also a whole like lifestyle thing that comes with that too. I mean, like, you could really look at anything that's sold these days, and it seems as though people are always trying to sell you on like a personality that you have to like mold yourself into to buy that product.
If you have a Hellcat, typically the rule is you can go really fast in a straight line, but if a corner comes around, you're going to crash. A Mustang, typically when they're leaving car meets, they always plow straight into the crowd. If you have a BMW, typically the turn signals aren't a priority. Let's see, Mercedes, typically they're rear-ending or tailgating a car at very close proximity. If you're driving a Nissan Altima, typically they're the fastest car on the interstate going down the fast lane with the bumper hanging on the ground. It's just every car has a stereotype to it.
Yeah, but also it revolves around like the lifestyle too. Like that anyone buying a Hyundai, Matthew, is going to turn that thing into a ricer. For some reason like a Hyundai or
no.
Well, what the hell is
Toyota, mainly Honda Civic SIs, the older ones. People will do that too. They'll add like the really tinny sounding exhaust to it, and they'll be like cranking up and revving at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, like it's for some reason everything's sold now with like a personality revolving around. It's not that like that naturally formed. Like with people like with Nissans and cars like that, those are the ones that are usually associated with racers. For some reason, like it's like the personality of, oh, you may be living in America in the middle of suburbia, but imagine, okay, you're a really cool Japanese dude from a movie, and you're like Tokyo drifting in Tokyo. It's like, you're not in Tokyo though. You're not that guy in the movie. Why in the world is your whole personality revolving around something like that? It's just like I don't know, maybe it's about like living a little bit more in reality or something. I don't sit here and act like I'm Rambo or anything. I'm not. I may own like several guns. I'm not Rambo though. Or I'm not the Punisher. I don't dress up like the Punisher or anything. But anyways, with that, we're going down a rabbit hole here that's pretty big. And then someone's airing their complaint. Honestly, I don't really care about the group. I just don't like lifestyles revolving around one thing. Like, why can't you just be a nice person and have hobbies and interests now? Like nowadays you can't have that. You've got to have like, you can't be a nice person. You've got to be like some kind of a snark, judgmental person that has like one interest, and that is your lifestyle. Like that's how like the world works these days. And it's like, why? Why can't you do multiple things and just be a nice person that has your own personality, whether you be nice or you end up being a little rude to people, just have that completely detached from the products you buy or something like that. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, big shout out to John Luke Sills, who puts in an $18 donation, but no comment to address, but I did see a super sticker. There's the YouTube creature holding around a #1 flag. Very happily wearing some armor.
And I have to thank John Luke Sills so much for the support, and I love the samurai doge waving around the #1 flag. I mean, dude, actually YouTube got that largely right. That is like a samurai banner and everything. Like, I don't know how in the world they got that right, because usually people who do those little things never get the historical stuff right. It's not that bad, really, for a little emoji thing. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address it fairly well, and thank you for putting the Samurai #1 Doge in the Super Chat. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And Vance Hicks hit it right on, like, right the hit on the nail, or however it's the whatever. Vance Hicks said, "I hate those loud ass Civic SIs. I drowned them out with my straight pipe Harley. I feel like I sound less obnoxious."
Oh,
Well,
oh man, you know, and I was just thinking, Matthew, the motorcycle world is the place where you see the brand personalities come out too much, like for everyone. You know, like it's like hopefully you're not one of those folks. But I was just thinking about that, Matthew. I was like, you know, the people who ride, let me think, the racing motorcycles. You know the one I'm talking about.
there actually is a deal though with that. Like, you can ride. It's a division between sport bike riders and Harley
cruisers,
riders.
yeah.
Cruisers. There's actually, like, I don't even understand it. A legitimate hatred between the two. I don't understand what it is. The Harley riders, like, and Vance Hicks, I don't know if this probably doesn't apply to him, but typically the Harley riders are really, really, like, tough against the sport bike riders. I have no idea why.
Yeah, I don't really get it. I mean, like it's like you know, I've looked at motorcycles. They're interesting. I don't think I'd ever get one though, especially here in Birmingham, because you just die.
You get killed.
Yeah, you get killed. But you know, it's like, why in the world does that exist? You know, like I don't understand why folks can't just be like, you know, like, you know, the guy's into cruisers or the guy's into racing bikes. I mean, that's just his thing. Still a cool guy though. I mean, nothing wrong with the dude. You know, he just has a different taste in motorcycles or something. You know. I don't know why folks aren't like that, but anyways, I hope Vance that you are not one of those people, and you're a nice person who just goes, hey, you know, that guy over there, he's driving the little racing bike, but you know that's just his thing. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, shout out to Andre DeRoche, who puts in a $5 donation and says, "I ordered a T-shirt from you guys, an XL, and it's a something too small." I'm not sure what that means.
What? Well, I thank you for the.
I don't know.
I thank you for the support, Andre. And if there is a problem with that, contact the customer support at Teespring, because they manage that stuff, and they'll hopefully be able to sort you out and get you a bigger size shirt. Because I have noticed, and I will say this, if you ever buy one of our shirts, buy one that's a size larger than you normally buy, because their sizes do seem to be a little bit smaller than the norm for their size sets. Like an extra large that I bought for me actually ended up being a large for Matthew, although it was called an extra large. So just keep that in mind. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and thank you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Jeanette Littlehall, who says, "Did Russia really hit the NATO center in Ukraine and kill many Western people?"
I haven't heard about that, and I feel like if that did happen, we would have heard about that, and that would have definitely made news on my channel. And so with that, I hope that answers that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Alex77, who says, "How did the USSR make money during the Cold War?"
Wait, reread that again?
How did the USSR make money during the Cold War?
The USSR didn't really make money in the Cold War like we would think about Western countries. They were a closed economy for the most part, only traded amongst each other. So there was really no concept of value or money to Russian money, or Soviet money for that matter. Whenever money left the Soviet Union, it was worthless. Western money actually held value in the Soviet Union, but Russian rubles or Soviet rubles were completely worthless outside of the Soviet Union because their economy held no weight outside of their borders. So they would trade with people, but usually it was kind of like a material trade. That's why you'll hear the joke about Pepsi was one of the largest navies in the world for a while, because the Russians didn't actually have money to trade with people. They had things that they would trade with people. And so they traded with Pepsi, like an entire Russian naval fleet, well, Soviet naval fleet, for a Pepsi shipment. And the Soviet Union collapsed before they could actually finish that deal. But that's how they kind of made money, I guess, is that they kind of bartered goods for other goods instead of like paying money for stuff. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Although that wasn't really that good of an explanation. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a super chat from Jay Lacing, who puts in a $2 donation. LSA, USA, LSA, Ukraine, LSA, USA. Love you all, and pick a chat. And Jay, thank you very much for that support. And of course, we will pick a chat, and it goes to Miss Disa, who says, if the USA won't give Ukraine ATACMS but says they will give something as effective, what would that be?
Let's see, something as effective. The ground launched small diameter bombs is one. Tomahawk is another, although that's got a lot of range on it. That thing's got way more range than an ATACMS. So I really think it would honestly just be the ground launched small diameter bomb. That may be what they're giving to Ukraine instead. But I don't really know, because I don't really know. Because y'all sit there and make me feel like an idiot about the U.S. arsenal, because I felt like I knew about U.S. weaponry until some of y'all started to talk about things like the Rapid Dragon or the Thor system, which I didn't know about. And then I'm like, man, I don't even know about everything that we do have in weaponry. We just have so much stuff. So I would know that the ground-launched small-diameter bomb is a substitute for an ATACMS, but I don't really know of any others beyond that. So that would be my answer for now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the away team, who says, do you think Putin is sending nukes to Belarus so that if he has to run from Russia when this fails, he will still hold a world power position?
Actually, that may be it, but I don't know if Lukashenko would actually back him up at that point, because Lukashenko is kind of a puppet of Putin, and he's also been abused a little bit from what we can tell, knocked around a little. So he may not actually want Putin to show up in Belarus. And then on top of that, who's to say that in the middle of all that confusion, Lukashenko wouldn't try and secure control of those nuclear weapons for Belarus's sake? And so then Putin wouldn't be in control of them anymore. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, or at least gives a couple of hypotheticals as to why that could or couldn't happen. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Momoto, who puts in a $5 donation and says, is Russia going to sell their country to the Chinese just to get back at the USA?
Probably metaphorically they will. They are most likely going to become a raw resources state for the Chinese for the most part. Their economy is far too weak to stand on their own anymore, so they'll most likely do that. So in a way, they would pretty much be selling their country to the Chinese. They'd be selling their goods to the Chinese, which would make them directly attached to China. So I hope that answers the question fairly well. I don't think it will be just to get back at the USA. I think that'll be Russia's only real chance at survival in the future. But with that, I hope that answers that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat this time from Colleen Emsley, who puts in a $20 donation and says, hi from Calling Lake. Up here, need helis, big trucks, snowmobiles, and quads. Not so much my 1986 Corvette convertible pace car, LOL. Hey, that's pretty cool you have a pace car. That's very cool.
1 second, we got to pull that thing up. 1986 Corvette convertible pace car. Oh,
yes.
Lovely. Baby. Official pace car. Man, look at that.
Very nice.
Very nice. I like
that.
A piece
of history.
I like that. And I got to say, thank you for the support, Colleen. And I would also have to tell you, up here need helis, big trucks, snowmobiles, quads. Now, I understand why y'all need those. And here's what I'm saying. Like, I want to make this as clear as possible. I have nothing wrong with anyone, like, buying anything. I mean, like, it's like here in America, it's America. Buy anything you want. It's a free country. Do whatever you want. Just, don't get involved in other folks' business. That's usually the best way to live in America. But like with the whole personality thing, I don't want to say, like, you can almost judge what people have as their hobby, like their individual hobby or interest in America now, off of how they act. Like if they come in dressed in all black with too many pockets on their clothes and they got some kind of patch on their jacket or something, I can put 10 out of 10 times. It also revolves around the personality a little bit. 10 out of 10 times, I bet you I can immediately say, hey, I bet you're into guns, aren't you? Yeah, I am. What about it? It's like, well...
And they're going to get whomped in a fight.
Yeah, and they will get absolutely stomped. And someone will sit there and you'll see them and they will be... let me see how to explain this. They will be, like, a little bit too out of the loop. They dress a certain way, act a certain way, and then you go, you must watch this kind of show, like these kinds of movies. And like it's a specific set because nowadays, you can't just watch a movie. You got to embrace a personality to watch movies and you'll get it almost right on the nail. Like that's what I don't like about the modern world is that people are getting a little bit too caught up in the things they buy, you know, instead of just being themselves, you know. And then people think they only can be themselves by buying products. Therefore, they can express themselves through the products. And I just don't think that's the case. Like, you can be your own person. Like, I could wear hoodies, I could wear polos. Hell, I could go around wearing a 3-piece suit. I would still be me. I would still act like me right now. I wouldn't change the way I act. I'd just be wearing different clothes. But then people change the way they act off of the clothes they wear. You know, like if they wear hoodies, then you have to act more like, in tune with the streets, I guess you could say. You know, like, man, shit, you know, all that stuff. And then if you wear polos, you have to sit there and go, I partake in the hash, or something like that. You know, you got to act weird about it. Or, you know, you wear a 3-piece suit. All of it is below me. You know, it's like, why? You know, it's like, just be you. You know, it's like, it's weird. It's weird. But anyways, with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well, what I was meaning earlier. But still, Colleen, I really like this 1986 Corvette pace car. That is actually really cool. My favorite Corvette, though, are the original Corvettes from, like, 1956.
Oh, the astronaut Corvettes.
Yeah, these Corvettes. I love these Corvettes. They're so cool looking.
Yeah, the astronauts got... I don't think it was these. I think it was, like, the 2 split-window Corvette that the astronauts got.
Yeah, I mean, like, these things are just so cool, though. I love the little style of them. Like, I honestly think there's a huge market out there in the modern world for these little retro cars, because people liked them. They looked cool. They had really neat designs, and people hate to see them go. And so, you know, if you made, like, reproduction 1956 style Chevrolet Corvettes, like, with modern road safety standards and stuff like that, I feel like people would buy these things.
Punch in 1964 Corvette.
Got you. 1964. Yeah, I mean, like, this one's good. I just feel like the original Corvette was better, you know?
Rumor has it when you stomp one of these, like, you put the pedal down, papers and stuff with top secret come flying out of the back.
Oh man, you better watch out. You better watch out. Hey, what are these classified documents doing in the garage? Oh, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean, Jack? That's not classified. But anyways,
stomp it. Some of the papers go flying out.
And then the Russians are back there literally just snatching it up off the ground. Oh god, thank you. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says a Kinzel is basically a plane-launched Iskander.
And I thank you for the support. Well, actually, that's not even support. That's just a live chat. But
that's a support, $2.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you say that. Why don't you read it again? Reread the line.
$2 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says a Kinzel is basically a plane-launched Iskander.
Okay, now I thank you for the support. And that is one of the most controversial yet honest takes I've heard so far. It's way faster than an Iskander, but it pretty much is an Iskander. It does the same thing, and I think it carries the same explosive yield as well. So it pretty much is just a faster version of an Iskander and launched in the air. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and I think this is the last one of the night.
What? Wait a minute, hang on. This is the last one. Hang on. Let me start us off right. Let me start us off right then. And we are moving on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to Brenda Bam, who says, do you think the Challenger 2 would go better through the mud without all the armor on it?
Yes, because it would be there would be less weight being distributed across the tracks, so it would be able to travel across the mud much easier. So I guess that is like kind of the advantages and disadvantages they're weighing out when deciding what kind of armor they're going to be putting on the tank or not. Maybe that was part of the decision-making process right there. But with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure running tonight's stream. And if y'all enjoyed, make sure to subscribe as we run this channel every single day of the week, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night, covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been a great honor. And good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, and of course, Slava Ukraini.
And good night. Love Ukraine, and join the Twitter. Don't feel lonely because Discord is going away. Join the Twitter and keep it daily.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що